The courtroom was buzzing with anticipation, but no one knew that the next few hours would go down in history as one of the most unexpected spectacles ever witnessed in a legal setting. In the thick of it all, a man known more for his ventures into space and electric cars than for his courtroom antics was about to create a scene that would have everyone talking. Elon Musk, the billionaire genius behind Tesla and SpaceX, walked into the courtroom with the same calm demeanor he had during one of his many groundbreaking launches, but this time, there was no rocket to send into orbit. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from, the legal live stream announcer piped in, trying to break the tension that hung thick in the air. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The camera panned across the room, capturing the intense expressions on the faces of those seated. The judge, a stern woman with an unshakable reputation, sat at the front of the courtroom, her eyes scanning the paperwork before her with cold precision. The opposing lawyer, a seasoned litigator known for his sharp tongue and even sharper legal tactics, gave Musk an almost disdainful glance. Elon, however, didn't seem fazed. As he took his seat at the defendant's table, he flashed a quick smile to his legal team, a group of top-tier attorneys who had prepared for this day as though their entire careers depended on it. The stakes were high. The case involved a dispute between Musk's companies and a rival tech firm that accused him of intellectual property theft. The court had already seen Musk's name in headlines countless times, some positive, others negative, but no one expected this trial to become a courtroom drama that would send shockwaves through both the tech and legal worlds. The tension in the room could be cut with a knife, and just as the judge was about to call the court into session, something entirely unexpected happened. Elon Musk, known for his serious business dealings and occasional social media antics, did something that made the room fall silent. He cracked a joke. "Your Honor," Musk began, his voice carrying a calm confidence, "I suppose I should start by thanking you for inviting me to this lovely gathering today. I hope the room is properly ventilated. You know how it gets when you have this many minds in one place." There was a brief silence. The judge, sitting up straighter, shot Musk a sharp look, while the opposing lawyer's eyes narrowed with disbelief. But then, something miraculous happened. The entire courtroom erupted into laughter. Not just a polite chuckle, but genuine laughter. People didn't know whether to be taken aback by Musk's audacity or entertained by the absurdity of the situation. Musk smiled, letting the laughter subside before leaning forward and adding, "I guess I should also thank the court for allowing me to be here, in the company of such well-informed individuals. It's not often that I get to spend my time with so many people who know how to read contracts better than I can." The humor in his words was subtle, yet it pierced through the heavy tension, instantly putting the audience at ease. The judge, though visibly unimpressed, was momentarily thrown off balance. For a moment, it seemed as if she might roll her eyes, dismissing Musk's lightheartedness as a strategy to undermine the seriousness of the case. But that moment of discomfort was short-lived. The opposing attorney stood up, clearing his throat, clearly trying to regain control of the room. He wasn't used to seeing a billionaire like Musk, known for his sharp intellect and media presence, treating the proceedings as if they were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Mr. Musk," the attorney said with a forced smile, "this is a courtroom, not a comedy club. I would appreciate it if we could stick to the facts and avoid making light of the situation." Musk's response was as casual as his first remark. "Of course. But you know, sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying. I mean, I'm sure your firm charges a pretty penny for this, right?" Musk said, turning his attention toward the attorney, a knowing look in his eyes. "It's hard to keep a straight face when you realize how much money is at stake here." This time, the laughter was mixed with an audible gasp of surprise. The judge, no longer able to hide her growing frustration, slammed her gavel down. "Mr. Musk, you will show respect for the court," she said sternly. "If you are here to mock the proceedings, we can end this session immediately." Musk leaned back in his chair, his smile never fading. "Your Honor, I respect this court more than you can imagine. I just thought a little humor might help ease the tension. After all, we're dealing with very serious matters here, right?" There was another moment of silence before the judge responded, her voice steady but tinged with irritation. "We are here to settle legal disputes, not to entertain. I expect you to conduct yourself accordingly, Mr. Musk." The room seemed to hold its breath. It was clear that the judge didn't take kindly to Musk's antics, and the opposing attorney's stern glare suggested that Musk's charm was about to run out. Yet, Musk remained unfazed. He wasn't just some Silicon Valley mogul, he was someone who had changed the world in ways most people couldn't even imagine. SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, he had built entire industries from the ground up. But now, in the most unlikely of places, he was about to show the world a new side of himself, his legal genius. The judge signaled for the proceedings to begin, but the tension remained palpable. Little did anyone know, the true drama was just beginning. And as the opening arguments commenced, Elon Musk quietly prepared to demonstrate why he was not only a genius in business but, as it would soon become clear, a mastermind when it came to legal strategy. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The sound of the gavel echoed through the courtroom, signaling the beginning of the day's proceedings. But unlike most high-profile cases, there was something different about the atmosphere. The usual tension that came with legal battles, the high-stakes drama, the sharp suits, the calculated moves, wasn't present. Instead, there was an air of curiosity. What had just happened? What was it about Elon Musk's unusual behavior that made this courtroom so electric? As the judge settled into her seat and the opposing lawyer resumed his opening argument, Elon Musk sat back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. He wasn't just a man with a sharp mind for technology and business. Musk had an uncanny ability to read people, to sense their weaknesses, and most importantly, to understand the psychology behind every legal strategy. This wasn't just a lawsuit, for Musk, it was another challenge, another puzzle to solve, one that he would approach with the same brilliance that had driven him to the pinnacle of success. A few members of the public watching from the gallery leaned forward, exchanging whispers about what they had just witnessed. Had Musk really just cracked a joke at a time like this? Could it be that his charm and wit were part of his strategy? And if so, what did that mean for the rest of the trial? To understand the moment, we had to understand the man behind it. Elon Musk wasn't just a billionaire, he was a disruptor, someone who constantly found ways to redefine what was possible. His story began in South Africa, where he grew up with a love for technology, innovation, and an insatiable curiosity about the world. From a young age, Musk's brilliance shone through. He taught himself how to code before he was even a teenager, creating and selling a video game at the age of 12. But it wasn't just his technical skills that set him apart, it was his vision. Musk could see what others couldn't. He saw electric cars replacing gasoline engines, private space travel becoming a reality, and AI transforming how humanity lived and worked. At 17, Musk moved to Canada, and later to the United States, where he attended the University of Pennsylvania. From there, he launched his first company, Zip2, a software company that eventually sold for almost $300 million. This was just the beginning. The sale of Zip2 provided Musk with the capital to launch X.com, which would later become PayPal. When eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion, Musk walked away with a $165 million payout. But Musk didn't stop there. Instead of enjoying the fruits of his success, he put his newfound wealth into what he believed would change the world: electric cars, space travel, and more. His companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, became synonymous with innovation and disruption. But despite his success, Musk had always remained a polarizing figure. To some, he was a genius, to others, he was a mad scientist. Yet, few understood the depth of Musk's legal acumen. Most people thought of him as the visionary who made his fortune by thinking outside the box, but it wasn't just his inventions that made him a formidable force, it was his ability to navigate the complexities of law and business with an almost uncanny precision. That same precision was what was at work in the courtroom now. Musk was no stranger to legal battles. Whether it was defending Tesla against allegations of fraud or battling patent infringement cases, Musk had faced his fair share of courtroom drama. But this case was different. The lawsuit at hand had the potential to tarnish his reputation and shake the foundations of his empire. The rival tech firm, one with vast resources and a network of legal experts, had accused Musk of stealing intellectual property. The charges were serious, and the courtroom atmosphere reflected that gravity. But Musk wasn't sweating it. He had a plan, a strategy that involved not just his business acumen, but his understanding of how to read the room, how to play people's emotions, and how to disrupt the flow of a courtroom in ways that no one expected. Musk's legal team was top-notch, hand-picked from the best law schools and firms around the country. But it was clear that they were all operating under his guidance. They knew how important this trial was, not just for the future of Musk's companies, but for his personal reputation. They also knew that Musk had a way of thinking that was unconventional, something that gave him an edge. But what no one expected, least of all the judge and opposing counsel, was how Musk's behavior in the courtroom would evolve. The joke he cracked earlier was just the beginning. Musk wasn't trying to be disrespectful, rather, he was testing the waters. He was showing that he wasn't going to be intimidated, that he wasn't going to conform to the usual rules of the game. Musk had a deep understanding of human psychology, and he knew that humor was an effective tool for disarming people. In a courtroom, where emotions run high and egos often clash, a well-timed joke could diffuse the tension and make people see you as someone approachable, someone who could be trusted. The lawyer on the opposing side, who had expected a straightforward legal battle, now found himself thrown off balance. The judge, too, had clearly been taken aback. She was used to seeing lawyers and defendants stick to the script, following the rules to the letter. But Musk was doing something entirely different. He was engaging with the room, making it clear that he wasn't just a businessman, he was a master of the game. As the case began in earnest, Musk's legal team began to lay out their argument. It was a carefully crafted defense, built on the premise that the accusations against Musk were not only baseless but also strategically timed to harm his companies. The opposing firm, however, was confident. They had their own legal experts, their own strategy. But even as they spoke, Musk remained cool, collected, and, at times, even a little amused by the proceedings. It was becoming clear that this trial would not just be a test of facts and law, it would be a test of wit, intellect, and the ability to outmaneuver your opponents in ways that no one expected. As the day wore on, Musk continued to play the game with ease. His humor was disarming, his presence magnetic, and his legal genius undeniable. Every move he made seemed calculated, but with a flair that kept everyone on edge. No one could predict what would happen next, and that was exactly what Musk wanted. The tension between him and the judge simmered beneath the surface, but there was no denying one thing: Elon Musk was in control. And he wasn't going to let this courtroom drama unfold in any way but his own. The morning session of the trial had already stretched into hours, and it seemed as though no one could quite predict the direction it would take. After Elon Musk's unexpected, yet subtle, disruption of the courtroom's tense atmosphere with his humor, the proceedings began to follow an unorthodox rhythm. His legal team worked meticulously through the evidence, countering each point made by the opposition with precision. But it wasn't just the facts that were being contested in this trial, it was the very nature of the courtroom dynamic. The opposing lawyer, Gregory Fenton, a sharp-tongued litigator with decades of experience in corporate law, seemed agitated. Musk's behavior had thrown him off balance more than he cared to admit. As Fenton stood at the lectern, delivering his arguments with calculated authority, it became evident that his confidence was beginning to falter. Every time he glanced over at Musk, he couldn't help but notice the subtle smile playing on Elon's lips, as if he was 2 steps ahead in a game that Fenton didn't even realize he was playing. "Your Honor," Fenton's voice echoed, drawing everyone's attention back to the proceedings. "The evidence clearly shows that Mr. Musk and his companies have engaged in a pattern of intellectual property theft, and we intend to prove that these actions were not merely coincidental, but deliberate attempts to undermine our client's efforts." He paused, casting a brief, calculating glance at Musk. It is clear that the defendant's vast empire is built not just on innovation, but on the backs of other, smaller firms that do not have the resources to defend themselves against such corporate giants. This is about protecting those who are too small to fend for themselves. Fenton's words hung in the air, but Musk remained unfazed, his attention shifting between his legal team and the judge. It was as though he were not in a battle of legalities, but in a mental chess game, anticipating every move before it was made. To Musk, this wasn't just about defending himself, it was about showing the world that he was more than just a businessman. He was a strategist, a master at reading the room and outthinking his opponents. The judge, sensing the growing tension between the two sides, cleared her throat and turned her attention back to Musk. "Mr. Musk, do you have a response to these claims?" Elon's response was calm and measured, but it carried the weight of years of experience navigating not just the world of tech and business, but also the intricacies of the law. "Your Honor," he began, leaning forward slightly, "I have been in many boardrooms and legal battles, and one thing I've learned is that people often mistake innovation for theft. What we are doing at Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink is not about taking from others, it's about pushing humanity forward. The idea that we are stealing ideas is absurd. We are creating new technologies that will change the world, and if that happens to overlap with other companies' work, well, that's just the nature of progress." The courtroom was still as Musk's words reverberated in the space. No one had expected such a straightforward response. Fenton looked taken aback for a moment, as if he had expected some kind of defensive posturing or an apology. Instead, Musk stood firm, his belief in his vision unshaken. "Let's talk about the evidence," Musk continued, flipping through the documents in front of him as if he were casually reading through a morning briefing. "The patents that my company holds were developed in-house, with original ideas that were generated by our teams of engineers and scientists. The timeline of development for these technologies is well documented, and there is no overlap with the work of your client. In fact, we are working on entirely new technologies, some of which have never been conceived before." Fenton was about to retort, but the judge interrupted. "Mr. Fenton, please stick to the facts. We will not entertain speculation about your client's motivations." There was a moment of silence as the judge's words hit their mark. For the first time in the trial, Fenton seemed to lose his composure, his face flushing with frustration. Musk, on the other hand, appeared completely at ease, his expression calm as ever. The tension in the room was palpable, but Musk's demeanor never wavered. He had been in more intense situations than this, boardroom battles, public controversies, and, of course, his ventures into space. To Musk, this was just another challenge to conquer. And conquer it, he would. As the lunch break loomed, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The legal teams retreated to their respective corners, but the battle of wits had only just begun. Musk's approach had thrown off his opponents and his legal team, who had expected the usual array of high-stakes courtroom drama. But what they were witnessing was something entirely different. Musk wasn't just defending himself against the accusations. He was methodically shifting the conversation, pushing the case into new territory. The more he spoke, the more it became apparent that this wasn't a case of corporate theft, it was a case about the very nature of innovation and progress. In the hours following the break, Musk's team began to present evidence of their own, detailed documents and timelines that disproved the allegations of theft. With each new piece of evidence, the case against him grew weaker. Musk wasn't just defending his companies, he was rewriting the narrative, reframing the story from one of corporate theft to one of corporate advancement. Fenton, who had once seemed so sure of his position, now looked less certain. He shuffled through his notes, trying to find a way to counter Musk's strategy, but it seemed like every argument he made only strengthened Musk's position. The courtroom had become a battleground, not of facts and evidence, but of ideas. Musk's genius wasn't just in his inventions, it was in his ability to manipulate the narrative, to craft a story that made the opposition seem outdated, irrelevant. And as the day wore on, it became clear that Elon Musk wasn't just going to win this case, he was going to turn it into his own triumph. The courtroom was tense. The afternoon sun filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows across the polished wood of the benches. Musk sat at the defense table, his gaze unwavering. He had already thrown the opposing counsel into disarray, but something was nagging at him. The battle of wits wasn't over yet. Musk knew better than to assume victory before the final gavel fell. Gregory Fenton, the opposing lawyer, had spent the past hour trying to discredit Musk's evidence with technical jargon and accusations of misleading the court. But Musk was prepared for this. Every claim Fenton made was met with a calm rebuttal. With each answer, Musk revealed more about his strategic genius, not just in technology, but in understanding how to manipulate the legal chessboard. As the day stretched on, it was clear that Musk had the upper hand. The judge, once skeptical, had grown more and more attentive to Musk's every word. Her steely gaze shifted between the defense and prosecution, though she had yet to make a clear decision. The jury, too, seemed fascinated by the ongoing battle of minds. But then, just as the momentum seemed firmly in Musk's favor, something unexpected happened. The courtroom door opened, and a new player entered, someone no one had anticipated. A woman in a sharp navy suit with a folder of documents under her arm walked briskly toward the defense table. Her arrival was quiet, but her presence was commanding. The woman was Mia Thornton, a highly respected lawyer known for her work in intellectual property law. Her firm had been the secret weapon Musk's team had been waiting to deploy. Known for her calculated, ruthless approach to litigation, Mia had earned a reputation for turning the tide in high-profile cases. She wasn't just any lawyer, she was an assassin with words. Fenton's eyes narrowed when he saw her approach. He had been hoping for an easy win, but now, Musk had brought in one of the best in the business. Thornton's reputation was built on her ability to find the weakest link in any case and exploit it. She had the ability to deconstruct an argument so thoroughly that it felt like the ground beneath you was collapsing. Mia sat down next to Musk, gave him a small nod, and then turned to the courtroom. The opposing counsel couldn't hide their surprise, and neither could the judge. Thornton was a formidable force, and her sudden appearance was enough to shift the entire dynamic. "Your Honor," Mia Thornton spoke, her voice clear and precise, cutting through the murmur of surprise in the courtroom. "We have just received new evidence that changes everything. Our opponent's case is based on an assumption, one that we intend to prove is not only false but deliberately misleading." Fenton's face reddened as he stood to object. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We were not informed of any new evidence." Mia didn't flinch. "It's not irregular, Mr. Fenton. It's just strategic," she replied, a sly smile forming on her lips. She was confident, almost too confident. The judge leaned forward, raising an eyebrow. "Ms. Thornton, what exactly is this new evidence?" With a deliberate movement, Mia opened the folder and handed it over to the judge. The courtroom held its breath as the judge reviewed the documents, her expression unreadable. Fenton looked over his shoulder, trying to make sense of the situation, but it was clear that Mia had turned the tables. "Your Honor," Mia continued, "we have evidence showing that our client, Mr. Musk, has been the victim of a coordinated attack by a rival company. This company has not only misrepresented facts but has also engaged in unethical practices, including the planting of false claims to weaken Mr. Musk's position in the market." There was a collective gasp in the courtroom. Musk's legal team, who had been sitting in the background, suddenly appeared energized. They had been waiting for this moment. Fenton, meanwhile, was visibly rattled, though he tried to mask it behind a forced smile. The judge leaned back in her chair, clearly intrigued. "Can you clarify how this new evidence impacts the case?" Mia nodded. "Certainly, Your Honor. The evidence includes emails between executives at the rival company, including one where they discuss how to strategically bankrupt Tesla by undermining its intellectual property claims. They even outline steps to use litigation to force Mr. Musk into a defensive position." The courtroom was now on edge. Fenton tried to maintain his composure, but it was clear that the momentum had shifted. Musk's team had not only disproven the original claims but now appeared to be presenting their own case of corporate sabotage. The judge, who had remained silent up until this point, finally spoke. "Mr. Fenton, do you have any response to this new evidence?" Fenton's mouth opened and closed as he searched for words. He could tell that the tide had turned, but he couldn't figure out how to pivot. Musk, however, remained calm. This wasn't just about fighting the case, this was a chance to expose something larger than a legal dispute. Musk stood slowly, his presence commanding the room. He had been quiet during Mia's dramatic entry, but now he was ready to speak. "Your Honor," Musk began, his voice smooth, "the evidence speaks for itself. My companies have worked tirelessly to innovate and push the boundaries of what's possible. But the real enemy here is not competition, it's the underhanded tactics of those who would prefer to see progress stifled. They would rather see us fight among ourselves than actually challenge the status quo." Musk paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping across the courtroom. "And the sad part is, it's not just about one company trying to take us down. It's about a system that rewards this kind of manipulation. But today, we get to change that." The room was silent as his words settled in. For a moment, even the judge seemed taken aback. This wasn't the statement of a businessman on trial, this was the rallying cry of a visionary. Musk wasn't just defending himself, he was taking a stand for something much larger than himself. Gregory Fenton stood frozen, unable to respond. The evidence, the new twist, the way Musk had orchestrated the entire courtroom drama, it was too much to handle. The prosecution was on the ropes, and they knew it. Mia Thornton turned to Musk, giving him a subtle nod. It was clear that she had orchestrated this move, but Musk had been the mastermind behind it all. Together, they had just flipped the entire trial on its head. The judge looked back at the defense team, her gaze now more attentive than ever. "I think we've had enough for today. I will need time to review this new evidence." With that, the gavel came down once again, and the courtroom filled with a mix of whispers and murmurs. But one thing was certain, Elon Musk had just shifted the entire narrative in his favor. The days following the unexpected twist in the courtroom were filled with tension. The new evidence, introduced by Mia Thornton, had shaken the foundation of the case against Elon Musk. What had initially appeared to be a straightforward intellectual property dispute was now morphing into something far more sinister, corporate sabotage. The courtroom atmosphere, which had once been cold and rigid, now buzzed with whispers of intrigue. The public, the press, and even some of Musk's own supporters had begun to question the motives behind the case. Was this truly about intellectual property theft? Or was something deeper at play? Elon Musk sat in the silence of his office late into the night, his mind racing through every detail of the case. The twists and turns that had unfolded in the past few days were both unexpected and calculated. He had expected the legal battle to be fierce, but never had he anticipated it would escalate to this level. There was a deeper layer to the case, one that involved far more than just protecting Tesla and SpaceX from legal claims. It was about protecting the very principles he had built his companies on: innovation, progress, and an unrelenting pursuit of the future. Musk was interrupted by the sound of his phone vibrating on the desk. He glanced at the screen, an alert from one of his trusted advisors, Mia Thornton. She had been in close communication with him, coordinating the strategy for the next phase of the trial. They had laid the groundwork for this moment, but what came next would be even more crucial. He knew that his next moves in the courtroom had to be precise, calculated, and most importantly, timed perfectly. His phone rang, Mia's name flashing across the screen. Musk answered it, his voice calm but assertive. "Mia, what's the update?" "There's a new development, Elon," Mia said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We've received additional documentation from an anonymous source, proof that this isn't just about corporate espionage. This goes deeper. We've uncovered a series of illegal activities designed to discredit you and your companies." Musk's heart rate quickened. "Go on." Mia took a deep breath. "The rival company behind this case, Gentech Innovations, has been involved in a series of unethical activities. We've found evidence of data manipulation, falsification of documents, and even attempts to hack into Tesla's internal systems. This is more than just a business rivalry, it's a targeted effort to destroy you. Musk sat back in his chair, his mind racing. This is what I suspected, he muttered to himself. But we need to make sure we expose this in the right way. It's not just about winning the case anymore, it's about making sure this kind of behavior never happens again. Exactly, Mia replied. We've got everything we need to destroy their credibility. But we need to take this to the next level. Tomorrow, we introduce this evidence in court, and we do it with the kind of force that no one will be able to ignore. Musk knew Mia was right. The trial had already shifted in their favor, but now they had the upper hand, and it was time to push forward. He had never been one to back down from a challenge. He had built his empire by taking risks and disrupting industries, and now was no different. The following day, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. News outlets had already caught wind of the new developments, and reporters lined the hallways, speculating on what Musk's team would present next. The pressure was mounting, but Musk walked into the courtroom with the same calm demeanor he always carried. His legal team had prepared him for this moment, and he was ready. As he entered the courtroom, Mia Thornton stood by his side. Her calm confidence was the perfect counterbalance to Musk's quiet intensity. She had been instrumental in developing the strategy that had turned the case around, and now, together, they would expose the true nature of their opponents. The judge called the court to order, and the trial resumed. Fenton, the opposing lawyer, stood with his usual smug expression, though it was clear that the pressure of the past few days had begun to erode his composure. The judge looked over at Musk's legal team. Ms. Thornton, it's your turn. Please proceed. Mia stood and walked toward the podium, her footsteps measured and deliberate. She opened a large folder and began to speak, her voice steady but carrying an undeniable weight of authority. Your Honor, members of the jury, we are here today not only to defend my client, Mr. Elon Musk, but to expose the truth of this case, something that has been hidden behind a veil of lies and deception. As we have already presented, there is no foundation for the allegations brought against Mr. Musk's companies. However, the true nature of these accusations goes far beyond intellectual property disputes. This is a case of corporate sabotage, plain and simple. She paused, letting her words settle in the room. The jury, who had been quiet up until that point, shifted in their seats. Musk's legal team watched as the courtroom fell into an almost eerie silence. Over the past few days, Mia continued, we have uncovered a network of illegal activities orchestrated by Gentek Innovations, the company behind these baseless claims. What we present here is not speculation, but hard evidence, emails, documents, and internal communications showing their involvement in attempts to undermine Tesla and SpaceX. We've uncovered data manipulation, hacking attempts, and, most damning of all, plans to discredit Mr. Musk by spreading false accusations and planting misleading evidence. Fenton's face turned pale. His eyes darted around the room, but he said nothing. The judge, too, was silent, her face unreadable as she absorbed the weight of Mia's words. Musk, however, felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the turning point. This was where the battle would be decided. Mia continued to methodically present the evidence, displaying emails between executives at Gentek discussing how to destabilize Musk's companies by fabricating legal challenges. She also presented financial records showing that Gentek had secretly funded anti-Tesla smear campaigns and had hired private investigators to monitor Musk's every move. The room was stunned. The jury was riveted, and even the judge seemed taken aback by the depth of the evidence. Musk could see Fenton's composure cracking. The tables had turned in ways he hadn't even fully anticipated. At the end of Mia's presentation, the courtroom sat in complete silence. The air was thick with the weight of the revelations. Musk could almost feel the shift in the room, the moment when the truth had become undeniable. His opponent's case had crumbled. Your Honor, Mia said, we have proven that these charges against Mr. Musk and his companies were not only baseless, but also part of a coordinated effort to destroy them. We request that the court dismiss all charges and recognize the true nature of these accusations for what they are, a deliberate attack on innovation and progress. The judge nodded slowly, clearly processing the magnitude of what had just been presented. She looked at Fenton, whose face was now pale with shock and disbelief. "I will need to confer with my colleagues before making a decision," the judge said, her voice firm. "We will reconvene tomorrow." As the court adjourned for the day, Musk stood tall. The battle was far from over, but he knew the tides had shifted irrevocably. The truth had come to light, and no matter what came next, the world now knew exactly who was behind the attack on his companies. Musk turned to Mia with a small, knowing smile. "We've done it," he said softly. Mia nodded, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. "This is just the beginning." The following morning, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The media buzzed with rumors about what had been uncovered the previous day. It wasn't just a legal case anymore, it had become a story of David versus Goliath, innovation and integrity against corporate manipulation and deceit. Musk, known for his boldness and unconventional approach to both business and life, had just opened a new chapter in this high-stakes legal drama. His calm and calculated presentation had stunned the courtroom, but now the real work began. The judge's chambers were filled with the sound of murmurs as Musk and his team waited for the verdict. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second stretching longer than the last. Mia Thornton stood by Musk, her arms folded across her chest, her face focused yet serene. She was confident, but even she knew the outcome was far from certain. It wasn't just the case that was on the line, it was Musk's legacy. As the gavel struck to call the court into session, the judge emerged, her expression neutral but heavy with decision. Everyone in the room rose to their feet, and the silence that followed seemed to drag on longer than usual. "Please, be seated," the judge instructed, her voice commanding but composed. She turned toward the defense table, her eyes briefly meeting Musk's before moving to Mia. "Ms. Thornton, Mr. Musk, the evidence you have presented is significant. It has certainly raised serious questions about the legitimacy of the claims made against you and your companies. However, the gravity of the allegations requires further consideration, and I must remind you that the legal system cannot be swayed by public opinion alone." Musk sat still, his face calm, his mind laser-focused. He knew the judge wasn't going to make a rash decision, this was part of the game. The legal system was about precision, patience, and timing. Musk had built an empire by challenging the status quo, but this was different. This was about survival. Fenton, on the other hand, looked uneasy. His once confident posture now seemed stiff and unsure. His team had been blindsided by the evidence, and while they scrambled to formulate a new defense, Musk's legal team had already gained the upper hand. Musk had not just defended himself, he had gone on the offense, exposing the darker side of corporate warfare. The judge took a moment to sift through the documents, her fingers lightly brushing over the pages. The tension in the room was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Finally, she spoke. "Based on the new evidence introduced by the defense, I find it necessary to grant an adjournment to further investigate the claims made. As of now, the charges against Mr. Musk are suspended, and the case is hereby reconsidered." A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. Musk didn't let his relief show, but inside, he knew this was a victory, a small one, but a crucial one. "Court will reconvene in 2 weeks, the judge continued. At that time, we will proceed with a new evaluation of the evidence presented." As the judge's gavel struck again, signaling the end of the day's proceedings, the room erupted in quiet chatter. Musk stood, his expression impassive, though his thoughts were racing. This was just a brief pause. In 2 weeks, they would return to face Fenton and his team again. But the momentum was now firmly on his side. 2 weeks later, the courtroom felt even more electric. The media had circled back with new intensity, publishing headlines and discussing the case non-stop. The underdog story of Musk versus Gentech Innovations had captured the public's imagination. But now, the court would return to address the claims once and for all. Musk had spent the past few weeks carefully preparing for the next round of this legal battle. He was no stranger to difficult situations, but this was different, it was personal. The idea that anyone would try to destroy what he had worked so hard to build left a bitter taste in his mouth. He wasn't just fighting for himself, but for his companies, his employees, and his vision for the future. In the days leading up to the next hearing, Musk and Mia met with the legal team tirelessly, refining their strategy. The plan was simple: they would not just defend Tesla and SpaceX, they would expose the full extent of the malicious actions taken by Gentek Innovations, leaving no room for doubt about their intent. Musk wasn't just going to walk out of this courtroom victorious, he was going to leave an indelible mark on the legal system, ensuring that no corporation could ever use underhanded tactics to destroy a competitor again. When the day arrived, Musk entered the courtroom with the same calm demeanor he had maintained through every challenge. He wasn't intimidated. He wasn't angry. He was focused. As the judge called the court to order, Mia Thornton stood up, her stance assertive, yet graceful. She approached the podium, and with a single look, she commanded the attention of everyone in the room. "Your Honor," Mia began, her voice carrying through the courtroom, "today we are here to ensure that justice is served, not just for Mr. Musk, but for all those who believe in the power of innovation, integrity, and fairness in business. The evidence we have presented speaks for itself. The actions of Gentek Innovations are not just unethical, they are illegal. They have sought to sabotage not just Mr. Musk's companies, but the future of progress itself." Fenton's face had turned an even deeper shade of red. His usual smugness was gone, replaced with frustration and nervous energy. Musk could feel the shift, the defense was beginning to collapse under the weight of the truth. Mia continued, "We have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that Gentek did not merely aim to compete with Tesla or SpaceX, they sought to obliterate these companies through deception, manipulation, and sabotage. Their actions were calculated, intentional, and ultimately aimed at destroying the progress these companies represent. The truth is clear, this case was never about intellectual property theft. It was about destroying Mr. Musk's vision for the future." She turned to face the jury, her gaze unwavering. "This case is not just about whether we win or lose. It's about what kind of future we want to build, a future where innovation is stifled by those willing to use underhanded tactics, or a future where the truth can be heard and justice is served." Musk watched Mia speak, feeling a deep sense of pride. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Everything they had worked for was coming to fruition. But he knew better than to get complacent, there was still one final hurdle. The judge looked to Fenton, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Fenton, do you have any response to this new evidence?" Fenton stood, but his voice faltered as he tried to form a defense. "Your Honor, we—" But before he could continue, the judge cut him off. "Enough. I've heard enough." The judge turned her gaze to the defense table. "Mr. Musk, Ms. Thornton, you have proven your case. The charges against you and your companies are dismissed. However, the actions of Gentek Innovations will be investigated thoroughly, and if necessary, further legal action will be pursued." As the gavel came down, signaling the end of the case, the courtroom erupted into applause. Musk remained calm, his expression stoic, but inside, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had done it. The battle had been won, not just in the courtroom, but in the larger fight for the future of innovation. Turning to Mia, Musk gave a nod of appreciation. "Thank you." She smiled, her face filled with quiet pride. This was just the beginning, Elon. And with that, Musk knew that his fight was far from over, but for now, he had triumphed. The courtroom had barely emptied when Musk's phone buzzed. It was a message from an old friend and business partner, one who had been watching the trial unfold with rapt attention. "Victory, huh? I knew you'd get there, Elon. I think the world is about to see a whole new side of you." Musk smiled slightly at the message. The victory was sweet, but it was not over, not by a long shot. The world had been watching, and while the judge's ruling had been a blow to Gentek Innovations, the battle was only half won. The truth had been laid bare, but there was still the matter of holding Genentech accountable for their actions, and ensuring that Musk and his companies could operate without fear of further sabotage. Musk looked out the window of his office at Tesla's headquarters, the sprawling complex of high-tech facilities, research labs, and manufacturing plants that had come to symbolize his vision for the future. Tesla was thriving, SpaceX was reaching new heights, and the public had bought into his dream. But the legal threats, the corporate espionage, and the enemies who would stop at nothing to bring him down, they were all part of the cost of revolutionizing industries. Musk knew this better than anyone. Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The courtroom had been a fight, but it was more than that, it was a statement. A statement that no matter how powerful the opposition, no matter how dirty the tactics, truth and innovation would always find a way to prevail. As he sat back in his chair, contemplating the next steps, a soft knock at his door broke his reverie. "Mia," Musk said, glancing up as she stepped into his office, holding a tablet in her hand. "Got the latest reports," Mia said, walking toward him. "I think you're going to want to see this." Musk took the tablet from her and studied the screen, which displayed an article from a major news outlet. The headline read, "Elon Musk exposes corporate sabotage, a victory for innovation." Musk's eyes narrowed as he read the piece. The article praised his victory in court but also highlighted the potential repercussions for the future of corporate law. It was clear that the case had struck a nerve, not just in Silicon Valley, but across the business world. For the first time, the media was giving Musk credit for standing up to the powerful forces that often controlled the corporate world. "This could change everything," Mia said, watching him closely. "The public is now aware of the lengths some companies are willing to go to destroy competitors. This case could set a precedent, one that challenges how business is done in this country." Musk leaned forward, intrigued. "What are you suggesting?" Mia smiled slightly. "What if we use this momentum to push for change? Not just in our case, but in how corporate accountability is handled overall. What if we make this personal, bring in the rest of the business community to ensure that no one else has to go through what you did?" Musk paused, considering her words. It was an interesting idea, but it would require a significant shift in approach. Musk had always believed in the power of innovation, the disruption of industries, but using his victory to create systemic change in the corporate world. That was a much bigger undertaking. "I think we could," Musk said, almost to himself. "This could be more than just a win in a legal case. This could be the moment that changes how business is done, forever." That evening, as Musk walked out of the courthouse for the final time, his steps were steady, but his mind raced. The win was monumental, but he couldn't allow himself to get comfortable. Genentech Innovations was not going to just roll over and accept defeat. The real war was just beginning. As he climbed into the back of the Tesla Model X waiting for him, his mind wandered back to the core of the issue. It was never about the patent infringement, it was always about power. Genentech's decision to go after him wasn't just a business move, it was a direct attack on everything he stood for. The companies he built weren't just profit-driven entities, they were meant to change the world. And in doing so, they attracted those who would rather tear down progress than support it. In the coming days, Musk's legal team began to prepare for the next phase of the fight. While the charges against Musk were dismissed, the damage done by Genentech's actions couldn't be ignored. It was time for Musk to use the legal victory as a springboard to push for real corporate accountability, starting with Genentech. But this time, the approach would be different. It was no longer just about defending himself, it was about ensuring that what happened to him would never happen to anyone else. Meanwhile, at Genentech Innovations headquarters, the atmosphere was grim. CEO Nathaniel Harding paced the floor of his office, his fists clenched in frustration. He had underestimated Musk. The corporate sabotage they had attempted had backfired, and now the company was facing both public and legal fallout. Harding's once smug attitude was gone, replaced by a sense of panic as he stared at the latest reports from his legal team. "The case is dismissed," Harding muttered, his voice low and cold. "But that doesn't mean we're done. We've got too much invested in this to back down now. His legal team had already briefed him on the next steps. Appealing the case was not an option, but they could still go after Musk in the court of public opinion. The media had already begun to turn against Genentech, but Harding was determined to shift the narrative. He needed to regain control, to paint Musk as a villain in the eyes of the public. "Get me everything you can on Musk," Harding ordered, his voice sharp. "We'll expose his flaws, his failures, and we'll show the world that he's not the hero they think he is. If we can't win this fight in court, we'll win it in the media." The battle lines were drawn, and this was no longer just a courtroom drama, it was a war for control over the narrative. Back in Musk's camp, Mia Thornton saw the warning signs. She knew Genentech wouldn't give up easily, they would fight back, and they would do whatever it took to tarnish Musk's reputation. But this time, Musk had a different kind of strength. His name carried weight, and the support of the public was on his side. As long as he could keep his focus on the future, he knew they would win the war. The next steps were clear, the legal battle was over, but the fight for the future had just begun. The calm that followed Musk's victory was brief. The news coverage surrounding the court case had barely settled before the storm clouds began to gather again. Genentech Innovations wasn't going to quietly fade into the background. Musk had known this from the moment the judge's gavel came down. This was far from over. The media buzz had turned into a full-scale frenzy, but Musk's team was determined to remain ahead of the curve. Musk sat at the head of a long conference table in his private meeting room at Tesla headquarters, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. Mia Thornton, always the strategist, stood at the front, her eyes scanning the room as she briefed everyone on the latest developments. "Genentech is playing dirty," Mia said, her voice steady, but firm. "They've launched a full-scale media campaign, and it's not just about spinning the case, it's about dragging Musk's name through the mud. They're attacking his personal life, his business practices, even his motivations behind SpaceX and Tesla. They're trying to paint him as a villain." Musk folded his hands in front of him and leaned back in his chair. His face was calm, but his mind was working at full speed. He had always known that as his companies grew, so would the scrutiny. But this was a full-on assault, and it was clear Genentech was using every weapon at their disposal. "They're trying to distract the public," Musk said, his voice low but sharp. "If they can't beat us in court, they'll destroy our reputation and our influence. They want to shift the narrative, turn the public's perception of us from innovative leaders to corporate villains. This is a fight for the hearts and minds of the people." Mia nodded. "Exactly. And it's working. Some of the reports out there are already calling you a corporate opportunist, questioning the ethics of your companies. They're even suggesting that you have personal motives tied to the downfall of Genentech." Musk's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "Let them talk. The truth is on our side. But we can't just sit back and wait for the tide to turn in our favor. We need to take action, now." Mia looked at him, her expression contemplative. "We can't just outmaneuver them with facts alone. This will take more than just legal defenses. We need to reframe the narrative. We need to make sure the public sees you as the visionary you are, not just the target of a smear campaign." Musk stood up, his mind already racing ahead of the conversation. He had fought battles before, both in business and in the media, but this felt different. This wasn't about building a product, this was about building trust and a movement. "I want to launch a global campaign," Musk said decisively. "Not just a product rollout, something that showcases the heart of what we do. I want to remind the world why we're here, to change the world, not for profits, but for humanity. We need to put SpaceX and Tesla front and center, not as companies, but as beacons of hope." Mia's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "A vision-driven campaign. That could work. We hit them where it hurts, show the world the bigger picture. The media's focus is on tearing you down, we'll shift it to building the future. People are still inspired by your work, Elon. They just need a reminder of why." Musk nodded, already formulating the details in his head. He knew he couldn't fight Gentek's media attack directly. It would be a losing battle if it turned into a back-and-forth. But if he could use their assault as a springboard to refocus attention on his mission, he could come out of this stronger than ever. The fight wasn't just about Tesla and SpaceX, it was about creating something bigger, something that could last far beyond the petty infighting of corporate titans. Back at Gentek, Nathaniel Harding wasn't taking Musk's counterattack lightly. Harding sat in his office, watching the footage of Musk's latest public statement. He could see the shift, a subtle but powerful message of vision, not just for Tesla or SpaceX, but for the world. Musk was positioning himself as something larger than life, a force for progress. It was a narrative that could inspire millions. Harding knew that if Musk was allowed to continue with his media campaign unchecked, the tide would shift in Musk's favor, and the damage would be irreparable. "Get me everything we can on Musk, personal, professional, everything," Harding barked at his assistant, who was standing by the door, a notepad in hand. The assistant nodded quickly and left the room, leaving Harding alone with his thoughts. For the first time in a long while, he felt outmatched. Musk was playing the long game, and Gentek had been caught flat-footed. "We need to strike first," Harding muttered to himself, drumming his fingers on the desk. "We need to expose him, show the world what he's really after. All this talk about saving humanity, he's just using it as a cover. He's a businessman at heart, just like everyone else. And we'll prove it." Back at Tesla, Musk's campaign began to take shape. His team worked tirelessly to craft a series of documentaries, public appearances, and social media initiatives that would put the focus squarely on the vision behind his companies, to make life multiplanetary with SpaceX and to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy with Tesla. They would showcase the projects that had already changed the world and highlight the people behind them, the engineers, the dreamers, the innovators who believed in the mission, just like he did. The public needed a reminder of who Musk really was, a visionary. Someone who dared to dream of a better world and was willing to face down impossible odds to make those dreams a reality. Musk also decided to take a more personal approach. He would speak directly to his followers. Through live streams, personal messages, and interactions on social media, Musk would cut through the noise of corporate politics and speak directly to the people who mattered most, the customers, the employees, and the fans. The first piece of content rolled out was a documentary-style video, showing the behind-the-scenes work at both Tesla and SpaceX, highlighting the countless hours of hard work and dedication that went into each breakthrough. It wasn't just about rockets or electric cars, it was about building the future. The video was a success. It went viral almost immediately. Thousands of comments flooded in from supporters who had been waiting for a reminder of what Musk's companies stood for. His message was clear: the fight wasn't just about profits, it was about changing the world for the better. But the counterattack had only just begun. Musk knew that Gentek would respond in kind, and likely with even more vicious tactics. The battle for the future was on, and this time, Musk wasn't just fighting for his companies. He was fighting for his legacy. The battle between Elon Musk and Gentek Innovations had reached a boiling point. While Musk had turned the tide with his powerful media campaign, Gentek wasn't about to let the narrative slip from their grasp. They had their own assets, and they were about to use them, against Musk, against Tesla, and against SpaceX. Musk had always been prepared for challenges, especially from competitors. But he knew this war was different. This wasn't just about the market or innovation. It was about control, the control of narratives, public perception, and, ultimately, the future. Gentek had been playing dirty from the start, but Musk was starting to see that they had deeper resources at their disposal than he initially realized. One chilly morning, as Musk was in a meeting with his senior leadership team at Tesla, a sudden buzz of urgency filled the room. Mia Thornton, his closest advisor and confidant, walked in with a stern look on her face, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. "Something's happened," Mia said, cutting straight to the point. "Gentek has leaked internal documents. It's all over the news." Musk's heart dropped. He could already imagine the kind of damage this would do. The media had latched onto every scrap of information in this war, and if they had something damning from Gentech, it would be catastrophic. Damning how? Musk asked, his voice calm but with an edge of tension. Mia hesitated for a moment before replying. The documents show that Gentech was working on a new energy project that could rival Tesla's. But the leak reveals something worse. It suggests that they intentionally accelerated the timeline to sabotage Tesla's progress. They've been planting misinformation in the media about Tesla's sustainability goals. And worst of all, there's a section about corporate espionage, how they hired insiders from Tesla to gain access to sensitive data. The room went silent as everyone processed the information. Musk didn't flinch. He had expected this kind of attack. What shocked him wasn't the move itself, it was the timing. Gentech had decided to go all in, to expose everything, to make this war as public and as ugly as possible. "Show me the documents," Musk said, his voice steady. "We need to understand exactly what they've leaked and what they're hoping to gain from this." Within hours, Musk and his team had the full picture. The leaked documents were indeed explosive. Gentech's own engineers had outlined a covert plan to not only steal Tesla's proprietary data but also infiltrate key operations in their manufacturing plants. The allegations about planting misinformation were even worse, pointing to a concerted effort by Gentech to create doubts about Tesla's ability to deliver on its promises. But there was a silver lining. The leak also contained enough evidence to turn the tide. Musk had a piece of the puzzle that could finally put Gentech on the defensive. If he played his cards right, this could be the hammer he needed to strike back. "What's the plan?" asked Jonathan, one of Tesla's senior executives, breaking the silence. "How do we respond to this?" Musk stood up, his posture unwavering. He had already formulated a plan, he knew what had to be done. He glanced at the team around him and then spoke with authority. "We don't just defend ourselves. We expose them. We go public with the truth. We have the evidence to show that Gentech has been systematically trying to undermine us. We use their own playbook against them." Mia raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we bring this to the press?" "Not just the press," Musk replied. "We go straight to the top. We need a full public revelation. I want to show the world exactly how far they're willing to go to stop innovation. This is no longer just about Tesla and SpaceX. This is about corporate ethics, the future of business, and the kind of world we want to create. Gentech's tactics are an affront to everything we stand for. If we don't expose them now, we risk letting this go unchecked." The plan was risky, but Musk's resolve was unshaken. He knew the risks. Gentech would retaliate hard, but this wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about winning a war. Meanwhile, at Gentech Innovations, Nathaniel Harding was not surprised by Musk's response. The leak had been strategically timed, and it was meant to weaken Musk's position in the public eye. But Harding knew they hadn't expected Musk to turn the tables so quickly. In his sleek, minimalist office, Harding paced back and forth, staring at the headlines that dominated every major news outlet. "Musk's dirty secrets revealed," read one headline. "Tesla sabotaged by Gentech's corporate espionage." The media had pounced on the story, but Harding understood how the media cycle worked. He knew that sensationalism would dominate for a while, but the truth always came out in the end. The public would soon forget. But Harding also understood that Musk wasn't the type to back down. Musk would fight, and now that Gentech had exposed its own vulnerabilities, Harding knew the next move had to be bigger. "Prepare the next phase of the plan," Harding said, his voice cold and calculated. "We're not going to let Musk walk away from this unscathed. If we have to destroy him, we will." The next few days were a whirlwind. Musk's team quickly organized a massive press conference to address the leaked documents. With the eyes of the world upon him, Musk stood on the stage, flanked by key members of his leadership team, including Mia and Jonathan. Cameras clicked, and reporters shouted questions, but Musk held steady, calm and collected. "My friends," Musk began, his voice clear and commanding. The truth is out. Genentech has been using dirty tactics to try to undermine Tesla and SpaceX. They have infiltrated our company, they've lied about our products, and they've tried to sabotage our progress. We have the evidence to prove it. He paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle over the crowd. This is bigger than just business. This is about the kind of world we want to live in. A world where innovation is stifled by those who are afraid of progress. We will not stand for that. Tesla, SpaceX, and every one of our companies will continue to push forward, no matter the cost. The crowd erupted in applause, and Musk supporters flooded social media with messages of support. But even as he stood on the stage, Musk knew that this victory was only a temporary reprieve. Genentech would come after him again, and when they did, the stakes would be higher than ever. As the press conference ended and Musk made his way back to the car, Mia turned to him with a concerned look. They're not going to stop, Elon. You know that, right? Musk's gaze was steely, but his resolve had only hardened. I know. But neither are we. The world needs to see the truth. And they will. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Musk felt something akin to peace. He wasn't just fighting for Tesla or SpaceX. He was fighting for the future. The tension between Musk and Genentech Innovations had reached a fever pitch. The public was captivated by every new development, every twist in the saga. With Musk's stunning press conference, he had set the stage for a new phase in this battle, one where his public image was no longer just a matter of media manipulation. It was a full-blown war of ideologies, with the future of innovation, corporate ethics, and even the very essence of progress hanging in the balance. Genentech, however, wasn't the kind of company to take a public hit lying down. Nathaniel Harding, ever the strategist, knew that their next move needed to be bold and undeniable. They had to push Musk into a corner, discredit him, and deflate the swelling support he had garnered from his supporters. They had one last card to play, a weapon that would strike at the heart of everything Musk had built. But Musk wasn't going to make it easy. He understood that the only way to win was not just to fight for victory but to redefine the entire narrative. He had to take control of the conversation entirely. It was a brisk afternoon when the next salvo was fired. Musk was in a meeting with his inner circle when his phone buzzed with an incoming news alert. Mia Thornton, who had been silently reviewing reports, glanced up at Musk with an unreadable expression. "Here we go," she said, almost to herself. Musk swiped the screen and read the headline that immediately popped up on his phone: Tesla and SpaceX in financial turmoil, documents expose hidden debt and mismanagement. Musk felt the blood drain from his face. Genentech's next attack was more personal, more dangerous. This wasn't about patents, espionage, or corporate warfare. This was about his companies being portrayed as failing enterprises, hemorrhaging money and struggling to stay afloat. He quickly scanned the details. The leak was apparently internal. Documents purported to show financial instability within both Tesla and SpaceX, highlighting their mounting debts, investment losses, and a series of missed deadlines on key projects. The documents suggested that Musk had misled investors, promising returns that had not materialized. There was even a mention of certain projects being overestimated, casting doubt on the profitability of SpaceX's future Mars colonization plan. "This could cripple us," Mia muttered, echoing Musk's thoughts. "It's a direct attack on the financial credibility of everything you've built." Musk didn't respond immediately. He was already thinking, already strategizing. The timing of this leak couldn't have been more perfect for Genentech. Just as he was gaining momentum from the media backlash against their earlier actions, they now aimed to undercut his financial credibility. "Call Jonathan," Musk said, his voice unwavering. "Get him on this immediately. We're going public, but we need to have every fact in hand before we do." Hours later, Musk was standing in front of the cameras again, his posture confident, his face calm, despite the storm that had just hit. He knew how high the stakes were. This wasn't just about defending his companies, it was about his legacy, his reputation, and everything that Tesla, SpaceX, and his other ventures stood for. I know what you're all reading, Musk began, addressing the media and the millions watching. There are claims out there about financial mismanagement at Tesla and SpaceX. Claims that suggest we've overpromised and underdelivered. But let me tell you something, I won't stand by while the truth is twisted to fit someone else's narrative. He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. Here's what's really going on, Musk said, his voice now firm and direct. Yes, we're heavily invested in the future. We're investing in technologies that could change the world. And yes, sometimes those investments require patience. But there's a difference between mismanagement and being on the cutting edge. SpaceX has achieved breakthroughs that no one thought possible. Tesla is revolutionizing the automotive industry with electric vehicles. And both of these companies are going to continue to lead, despite the hurdles we face. Musk leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. The truth is, we're not just fighting for profits here, we're fighting for the future. And I'll never apologize for that. The press conference was a spectacle. Journalists scrambled to ask questions, hoping for another explosive soundbite. But Musk stood strong, answering every question with precision and purpose. For every document they leaked, he had a response. For every financial claim they made, he had the numbers to back up his vision. He wasn't just defending his companies, he was reasserting his position as the leader of the future. As the conference ended, Musk walked out of the room to a throng of supporters who had gathered outside Tesla's headquarters. The crowd erupted in cheers, chanting his name. For a moment, it felt as though the entire world was behind him. He had turned the tide again, but he knew that this was only the beginning. At Gentech Innovations, Nathaniel Harding was furious. The calculated leak they had orchestrated had been met with exactly the opposite reaction they had hoped for. Musk had taken control of the narrative once again, showing the world his unwavering confidence. The public wasn't buying into the idea that Tesla and SpaceX were in financial ruin, at least not as easily as Harding had hoped. Harding stormed into his office, glaring at the news reports that were now plastered across his screen. The war between him and Musk had become personal, and Harding wasn't ready to lose. Not now. Not when they were so close to winning. Time to escalate, Harding muttered to himself, his fingers drumming impatiently on his desk. He hit a button on his intercom. Prepare the team. It's time we took the gloves off. The next phase of their strategy was already in motion. Gentech wasn't just going to try to ruin Musk's reputation anymore, they were going to target his people. If they couldn't break him through the media, they would make his closest allies question their loyalty. Back at Tesla, Musk sat in his office, eyes focused on the glowing screen of his laptop. Mia and Jonathan were with him, discussing the next steps in the ongoing battle. I think we've made a dent, but we need to keep pushing forward, Musk said, his voice calm but determined. We can't let up. Gentech's next move will be even more dangerous. Jonathan, his voice steady, added, it's only going to get harder. They're getting more aggressive, and they have the resources to come after us from all angles. We need to be prepared for anything. Musk nodded. We'll stay ahead of them. They'll keep trying to distract us with negative press. But we know our mission. We've come too far to let them win. Musk turned to Mia. Get the legal team to prepare. We need to make sure Gentech can't keep dragging our names through the mud. She gave him a determined nod. We'll have the strategy ready. As the meeting ended and the team dispersed, Musk felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just about business, it was about proving that no one could suppress progress. Gentech had pushed too far, and now Musk was prepared to bring the full weight of his companies, his vision, and his resolve into the next round. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The confrontation between Elon Musk and Nathaniel Harding had shifted into a new gear. No longer was it just about business tactics or media manipulation, it was now a high-stakes game of strategic moves and countermoves. Musk had exposed Gentech's dirty tricks to the public, but Harding was a formidable adversary. The next chapter in their conflict would be a test of wit, influence, and power. In the days that followed Musk's press conference, the media buzzed with speculation. Some outlets praised Musk for his unwavering confidence and commitment to innovation, while others, backed by Genentech, pointed out inconsistencies in Musk's claims. The accusations regarding financial mismanagement had stuck to his image in a way that even his most vocal supporters couldn't ignore. The question on everyone's mind now was, could Musk really handle the pressure? Or would the relentless attacks finally take their toll? But Musk, ever the visionary, had already moved beyond the public scrutiny. He knew the true battle was no longer about salvaging his reputation. It was about reclaiming control of the narrative, and proving that his companies, his ideas, and his vision were invincible. It was a quiet evening at SpaceX's headquarters when Mia Thornton walked into Musk's office, her expression grave. She closed the door behind her and took a seat across from him. The room, typically filled with the hum of activity, felt almost eerily still. "Elon, we need to talk," Mia said. "There's something big you need to know." Musk, who had been reviewing some data on his laptop, looked up, his expression softening when he saw the concern on her face. He sat back in his chair, folding his hands in front of him. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice steady. "Genentech is making their next move," she began. "I just got word from our legal team. Harding has mobilized an army of corporate lawyers to hit us with lawsuits. It's not just about the leak anymore. He's going after everything. Patent infringements, environmental violations, he's trying to create a perfect storm of legal challenges that could drag us down for years." Musk's expression darkened. Of course he would. He knows this isn't just a business battle anymore. This is about trying to break me, break the entire vision I've built. Mia nodded. "Exactly. And the timing. It's calculated. They're trying to hit us during the market's most vulnerable moment. If they succeed, it could delay our projects for months, even years." Musk sat up straighter, his mind racing. He was no stranger to the legal world. He'd been through lawsuits before, but this felt different. The stakes were higher, and this time, the legal battle wasn't just about protecting his companies, it was about protecting the future. "What do we do?" Mia asked, her voice almost pleading. "We fight back," Musk replied, his tone unwavering. "We take every challenge head-on. We don't let them control the narrative. And we use the law to our advantage." Mia blinked, surprised by his quick resolve. "But the lawsuits, they're everywhere. You can't just win them all." Musk leaned forward, a glint of determination in his eyes. "I don't need to win them all. I just need to make sure they know we won't back down. Let's find the flaws in their cases, make them look like the aggressors. We've got a team of the best legal minds. It's time to bring them to the table." The following weeks were a blur of meetings, legal discussions, and media campaigns. Musk threw himself into the fight with everything he had, carefully orchestrating every move. His legal team, led by a brilliant strategist named Veronica Hayes, began to uncover cracks in Genentech's lawsuits. While they couldn't fight every case at once, they could start to dismantle the credibility of Genentech's attacks one by one. Meanwhile, Musk's public persona continued to hold steady. He didn't shy away from addressing the media, constantly framing the situation as a battle for the future. The more Genentech's legal team attacked, the more Musk supporters rallied around him. It wasn't just his companies they were defending anymore, it was his vision. However, Genentech's next move was more subtle. Harding knew that Musk's legal team was formidable, but he had a different strategy in mind. The public couldn't ignore the lawsuits, but what if the world's focus shifted somewhere else entirely? What if Musk was forced to defend himself in a way that would undermine his entire foundation? Harding arranged a meeting with one of his top advisors, Claudia Jensen, in a dimly lit room at Genentech's headquarters. Her eyes gleamed with a ruthless determination as Harding spoke. "We need to go after Musk's credibility in a way that he can't recover from. Let's get personal," Harding said, his voice dripping with calculation. Claudia raised an eyebrow. You're talking about going after his private life? No, Harding replied, shaking his head. I'm talking about his relationships. His team. Musk has built everything on this image of being untouchable, invincible. But what if we start planting seeds of doubt? What if we expose cracks in his inner circle? Claudia considered the idea for a moment, then nodded. We find someone within his organization, someone close enough to him to know the details. We'll feed them information, get them to slip something damaging into the press. It won't be about attacking Musk directly, it'll be about undermining the loyalty of his team. Harding smiled darkly. Exactly. And when that happens, Musk won't just be fighting us, he'll be fighting his own people. It's the perfect strategy. As Musk continued to face the mounting pressure from Gentek's legal onslaught, he could feel the shift in the air. Something was coming, something bigger than just lawsuits. He was used to being under attack, but this felt different. The cracks were starting to show. It was late one night when Mia Thornton came into his office with news that would shake him to his core. She looked pale, a sense of urgency in her eyes. Elon, it's happening, she said, her voice tight. One of your senior engineers, someone from SpaceX, has gone rogue. They've been talking to the media. Musk's heart skipped a beat. Who? Mia handed him her tablet, showing him a news article that had just been published. It was a leak, a carefully crafted story about SpaceX's financial struggles, about tensions between Musk and his leadership team. The article hinted at deep-seated dissatisfaction within the ranks, suggesting that several key players were questioning Musk's management. This is what Gentek has been working on, Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. They've found someone close to you, and they've turned them. It's all falling apart. Musk stood, his fists clenched. This was more than just a legal battle. Gentek wasn't just trying to destroy his companies, they were trying to break him, personally. They think they've won, Musk said, his voice cold. But they're wrong. In the quiet of the night, Musk made a decision. He would not just fight back, he would fight smarter. He knew that his closest allies were his strength. The cracks that Gentek had tried to exploit would be the very things he used to rally his team. Tomorrow, he would call a meeting that would change everything. Musk's decision was swift and resolute. As the sun rose over the SpaceX headquarters, a quiet sense of urgency hung in the air. The leak that had surfaced overnight, accusing Musk of internal strife and dissatisfaction among his senior engineers, was the latest salvo in Gentek's attempt to undermine him. But Musk wasn't the type to sit back and let his enemies dictate the terms of engagement. He would use this latest development not to retreat, but to strike back even harder. The following morning, a private meeting was arranged at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne. The room was small, yet efficient, Musk style. He stood at the head of a long table, flanked by his most trusted allies, including Mia Thornton, Jonathan Collins, and Veronica Hayes, the legal strategist he had brought on to navigate the legal minefield Gentek had set. As the group settled in, the atmosphere was tense, but the resolve in the room was palpable. Musk looked at each of them, his gaze sharp but measured. We have a problem, he began. Gentek thinks they've broken us. They've found a crack in the armor. This latest leak about internal discord, it's a distraction. But it's not just about a leak, it's about breaking the spirit of this company. They think they can use our people against us. They think they can divide us. He paused, letting his words sink in. We're not going to let them. I won't let them. Mia was the first to speak, her voice steady but tinged with concern. Elon, we have to move fast. This leak is going to create doubts within our team. If even one person believes this narrative, it could spread like wildfire. Gentek is playing a long game. They've planted this seed, and now we have to root it out before it grows. Jonathan Collins nodded in agreement. We need to act immediately. If we don't, we risk losing the loyalty of those who've stuck by us for years. Musk leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with a determined intensity. We'll address it head-on. We'll hold an all-hands meeting with every engineer, every leader, every key player. I want them in this room, and I want to hear their concerns. No more leaks, no more rumors. We deal with it in-house. And we send a message to Gentek, loud and clear, that nothing can shake the foundation we've built here. Veronica Hayes spoke up, her voice calm but strategic. We'll need to make sure our legal defenses are airtight. There's no telling what other tactics Gentek might employ next. If they're going after our people, we need to have a response ready. And it better be quick. Musk nodded. I've got it covered. Let's prepare for what's coming. Later that day, the conference room at SpaceX was packed with employees from every department. Musk stood at the front, facing the crowd with a confident yet somber demeanor. The room was silent as he addressed his team. I know you've all seen the articles. I know the rumors have spread, and I know some of you might be questioning what's going on behind the scenes, he began, his voice steady. But let me be clear, this company, our company, has always been built on trust. Trust between me and all of you. Trust in our vision. And that trust has not wavered. He paused for a moment, looking around the room. He could see the faces of his engineers, his designers, his leaders, each one a part of the vast machine that was SpaceX. Some looked skeptical, others looked uneasy, but none looked defeated. Gentek thinks they've found a weakness, Musk continued, his tone unwavering. But the truth is, the only weakness they'll find is in themselves. They're the ones playing dirty. They're the ones trying to tear us apart from the inside. But they don't understand what we've built here. And they never will. There was a murmur of agreement in the room. Musk could see that his words were having an effect. The seeds of doubt planted by Gentek were starting to fade, replaced by something stronger, resolve. We're going to handle this together, Musk said. If anyone here has concerns, if anyone here has doubts, you come to me. We face this as a team, and we rise above the nonsense. That's how we'll win. Not by fighting back in the media, not by playing their game. But by showing them that we're untouchable because we are unified. He took a deep breath, then added, and as for the people spreading these lies, if they think they can break us by playing with our emotions and our loyalty, they are gravely mistaken. The room erupted into applause, the engineers and staff rallying behind him. It was the response Musk had hoped for. The unity of his team was the strongest weapon in his arsenal, and he knew that if they stood together, no amount of leaks or lawsuits could bring them down. Back at Gentek, Nathaniel Harding watched the entire meeting from his private office, the live stream of Musk's address playing on his computer screen. His face twisted in frustration as he saw the outpouring of support for Musk. It wasn't what he had expected. He had hoped that the leaks would sow division, create uncertainty, and ultimately destabilize Musk's leadership. Instead, it seemed to have the opposite effect. Damn it, Harding muttered, his fingers drumming on the desk. This is not going the way I planned. Claudia Jensen, who had been standing by, watching the broadcast as well, turned to Harding with a look of cautious concern. It's not over yet, Nathaniel. Musk may have rallied his team, but this is just one battle. We have others lined up. Harding gritted his teeth. I know. But this changes things. We need to shift tactics. He stood up, pacing back and forth in frustration. Musk has turned this into a morale war. If we can't break his team, we need to target him personally. We need to isolate him. There's no point in attacking the company if we can't shake the man himself. Claudia's eyes narrowed. You're thinking about going after his personal life again. Harding smirked. Not just his personal life. His family. His relationships. If we can break him there, we'll break his resolve. And once his resolve is broken, the companies will follow. At SpaceX, Musk was ready for the next phase of his fight. The rallying cry of his team had given him renewed strength, but he knew that the war was far from over. Genentech would not give up, and they would keep coming for him, through the media, through his employees, and now, it seemed, through his personal life. But Musk wasn't afraid. He had built everything he had from the ground up, facing challenges at every turn. This was just another test. And he would pass it, just as he had all the others. The battle for the future had only just begun, and Musk was ready. Elon Musk's ability to rally his team and turn a potential crisis into a unified front had given him a temporary reprieve. But the battle against Genentech was far from over. In fact, it had only grown more insidious. Now, the pressure was mounting from multiple directions: legal battles, media spin, and an emerging personal attack that Musk had not seen coming. Genentech had crossed a line, and Musk knew that to win, he would have to outwit them at every turn. After the all-hands meeting, Musk had returned to his private office at SpaceX to clear his head. The weight of the fight was starting to show. His normally composed demeanor was now tinged with fatigue, his face bearing the subtle signs of sleepless nights. As he sat at his desk, staring at his laptop, the door to his office opened. It was Mia Thornton, her face unreadable. "Elon, we've got a problem," she said, cutting straight to the point. Musk didn't look up immediately. His mind was elsewhere, but the urgency in her voice drew his attention. "What's happened now?" he asked, his voice calm despite the mounting stress. Mia stepped closer, holding her phone out for him to see. "It's about your family," she said. "They're starting to go after them." Musk's eyes widened as he saw what was on the screen, an article in a tabloid magazine, complete with a photo of his ex-wife and children. The headline read, "Elon Musk's Family, the Untold Story of Strain, Divorce, and Discontent." Beneath the headline was a series of sensational claims about his personal life, his past relationships, his strained marriage, even allegations about his parenting. None of it was new, but it was designed to hurt him. "They're going after my family." Musk's voice was low, a mix of disbelief and anger. This is a new low." Mia nodded. "We knew they might try to go after you personally, but this is a direct hit. Genentech is trying to shake your resolve by targeting the people you care about." For a moment, Musk was silent. He knew that in the world he inhabited, his personal life had always been fodder for tabloids. But this felt different. This wasn't just another headline. It was an attempt to tear apart everything he had built, not just in business, but in his personal life as well. "I can handle the business side," Musk said finally, his voice steady but full of resolve. "But they touch my family, and that's where I draw the line." Mia looked at him sympathetically. "What do you want to do?" Musk stood up from his desk, a fire igniting in his eyes. He was done being reactive. It was time to take control of the narrative once again. "We fight back," he said firmly. "We go on the offensive. I'm not just going to sit back and let them drag my personal life into this. We hit them where it hurts. I'll address the allegations head-on, but I'm also going to expose what they're doing. People need to know what kind of company Genentech is." Musk's response was swift and decisive. The next day, he organized a press conference, one that would address the latest tabloid story in Genentech's ongoing legal attacks. It was an unorthodox move. Musk had never been one for press conferences on his personal life, but he knew that this was no longer about just defending his companies. It was about defending his integrity and his family. The conference room was packed with reporters, the air thick with anticipation. Cameras flashed, and reporters murmured to each other as they waited for Musk to speak. When he finally stepped to the podium, he was composed, his face a mask of determination. "I know many of you are here today to talk about the recent stories surrounding my personal life," he began, his voice calm but strong. "I've seen the headlines, and I've heard the gossip. But let me make one thing clear, this is not a story about my family. This is a story about how Genentech, how a corporate giant, is trying to destroy my companies, my people, and everything we've worked for." There was a pause as Musk let his words sink in. The reporters were listening intently, knowing that this was not the usual corporate spin. Musk was speaking directly, no holds barred. They think they can hurt me by going after my family, he continued, but what they don't understand is that my family has always been my greatest strength. We've been through hell and back, and we're still standing. This is not a game. They're playing dirty, and I'm not going to sit idly by while they try to drag me through the mud. Musk's words had an almost palpable effect on the room. Reporters who had expected a weak response were now hanging on his every word. He was doing what he did best, taking control of the narrative. Gentech has tried to manipulate the media, manipulate the public, and now they've crossed a line. But they won't break me. And they won't break this company. We're not just a bunch of engineers building rockets, we're a team that's united in the face of adversity. And we will rise above this, no matter how low they sink. As Musk finished his statement, the room erupted into applause. The reporters, who had come in expecting a spectacle, now saw something entirely different, a man who had been pushed to the edge but was unshakable. Musk wasn't just defending his companies, he was defending the very principles he had built them on. Meanwhile, back at Gentech, Harding watched the press conference with growing frustration. He had expected Musk to falter, to stumble under the pressure of personal attacks. Instead, Musk had turned the tables, spinning the media's focus back onto Gentech's unethical tactics. Harding knew that if Musk kept this up, he could potentially rally even more public support, which would be disastrous for their plans. Damn it, Harding muttered, slamming his fist onto the table. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Claudia Jensen, who had been silently watching, spoke up. We need to go to the next phase. If Musk is going to make this personal, then we need to show him what personal really means. Harding's eyes gleamed. I know just what to do. If we can't break him through his business, we'll break him where it really hurts. The war between Musk and Gentech had entered its most dangerous phase. Gentech was relentless, pushing further into Musk's personal life, while Musk, driven by an unyielding resolve, was prepared to fight back with everything he had. But the deeper the conflict became, the more dangerous it grew, for both sides. One wrong move, and everything could come crashing down. But Musk had faced impossible odds before. And he wasn't about to back down now. The hours after the press conference were a whirlwind of media inquiries, public statements, and internal strategizing. Musk's press conference had been a resounding success in terms of turning the tide of public opinion. He had positioned himself as the resilient underdog, a man who wouldn't be cowed by corporate sabotage or personal attacks. The media, which had initially been eager to sensationalize his personal life, found themselves somewhat deflated, now forced to reckon with Musk's steel resolve. But while Musk was publicly triumphant, he knew that Gentech wouldn't relent. If anything, they were now more dangerous than ever. The corporate giant was playing a long game, and Musk needed to be 2 steps ahead. The calm after the storm was only temporary, he knew that the next strike would come soon. And when it did, it would be more subtle, more devious. For the next few days, Musk kept a low profile. He spent long hours at SpaceX, meeting with his team, overseeing operations, and keeping his eyes trained on Gentech's movements. Mia Thornton and Jonathan Collins worked alongside him, constantly updating him on the latest developments. But even as they strategized, there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. Everyone knew that the real battle wasn't just in the media, it was in the courtroom. Musk had already prepared for the legal fight. His team had been working tirelessly with Veronica Hayes, his legal strategist, to develop a robust defense against Gentech's ongoing lawsuits. But as much as Musk valued his legal team's expertise, he knew that no matter how well prepared they were, there would always be a moment when the unexpected would strike. That moment could come at any time. And then, it did. One evening, as Musk sat in his office, reviewing a series of reports on SpaceX's upcoming missions, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, seeing an urgent message from Mia. Mia, we have a problem. Get to the boardroom ASAP. Without hesitation, Musk stood up, his mind already racing through the possibilities. The fight with Genentech had already escalated to new heights, but he didn't know what this latest development might mean. He knew one thing for sure: it couldn't be good. When Musk arrived in the boardroom, he was met by a somber group of his closest allies, Mia, Jonathan, Veronica, and a few of SpaceX's top engineers. The tension in the room was palpable, and Musk could feel the weight of their silence. "What's going on?" Musk asked, his voice steady despite the unease creeping into his chest. Jonathan Collins spoke first, his face grim. "Elon, it's not just the lawsuits anymore. We've intercepted communication from Genentech. They've moved to a new phase of their attack. They've hired a private investigator to dig into your personal life, your financial records, your family, your business dealings." Musk's jaw tightened. "What does that mean?" Mia chimed in. "It means they're trying to find anything they can to use against you. If they can't take us down through the media, they'll try to do it in the court of public opinion. They'll try to uncover something that will break the public's trust in you." Veronica added, "We've dealt with smear campaigns before, but this is different. Genentech isn't just trying to win a lawsuit. They're trying to destroy you, personally and professionally." Musk's mind raced. He had anticipated legal warfare, but this was more insidious. A private investigator. This was an entirely new level of attack. And the worst part was, he knew they wouldn't stop until they had found something, anything, to exploit. "We need to act fast," Musk said, his tone cold. "We can't let them control the narrative. I want to know everything about this investigator. Who are they targeting? What are they trying to find?" Mia nodded, already pulling up information on her laptop. "We're still tracking the investigator's movements. It looks like they've been shadowing you for weeks now, trying to get close to your family, your inner circle." Musk felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had always been able to handle corporate drama, but this felt different. This was personal, and it was creeping into every corner of his life. "We'll keep monitoring them," Veronica said, her voice calm but resolute. "We'll also strengthen your security protocols. If they think they can intimidate you, they're mistaken." Musk nodded but felt a growing sense of unease. He couldn't let this happen, not again. The last time his family had been dragged into the public eye, it had cost him dearly in personal pain. He wasn't about to let Genentech use his loved ones as pawns in a corporate game. "We're going to take the fight to them," Musk said, his voice steely. "No more waiting. I'll handle this directly. They want to play dirty. Fine. Let's see how they like it when the tables are turned." That evening, Musk sat alone in his office, deep in thought. His mind kept returning to his family. They had always been a source of strength for him, but lately, the strain of the ongoing attacks had started to take a toll on everyone. His ex-wife, Justine, had already been dragged into the media circus, and his children had been subjected to invasive questions from the press. He could see the wear and tear on their faces, and it broke his heart. Musk had never been one to back down from a challenge, but as the evening wore on, he found himself asking a question he had never considered before: how far was he willing to go to protect those he loved? Was he ready to put everything on the line, not just his companies, but his family, his reputation, his very identity? The answer came swiftly, like a spark igniting in the dark. Of course he was willing. He had built SpaceX to change the world. He had revolutionized space exploration. But none of it would matter if he couldn't protect the people closest to him. If he couldn't protect his family from the dark forces that were trying to tear them apart. Musk stood up from his desk, a sense of resolve settling over him. This wasn't just about defending his empire, it was about defending what truly mattered. The following morning, Musk gathered his legal team and top executives for an emergency meeting. He outlined a bold plan: he would confront Genentech head-on, using the full weight of his resources to turn the tables. He would make it clear that any further attacks, on his family, his companies, or his personal life, would be met with a level of legal and public scrutiny that Gentek couldn't possibly withstand. They would strike back, not with weakness, but with overwhelming force. Gentek had started this war, but Musk was about to take control of the battlefield. As the days unfolded, the tension between SpaceX and Gentek continued to grow. Musk's calculated strikes had sent ripples through the corporate world, but Gentek was far from defeated. The battle lines had been drawn, and there would be no turning back. But as Musk prepared for the next phase of his war, one thing was clear: he would stop at nothing to protect his family, his team, and his legacy. The storm was far from over, but Musk was ready for whatever came next. The days following Musk's bold declaration of war were a blur of intense planning, strategizing, and legal maneuvering. Gentek's attacks had only grown more vicious, but Musk had already anticipated their next move. The game had shifted. He wasn't merely reacting anymore, he was dictating the pace of the fight. Musk had always thrived in high-stakes situations, and now, with everything on the line, he was more focused than ever. Gentek's smear campaign against Musk had hit a new level of absurdity. Their hired private investigator, now fully embedded in Musk's life, was digging deeper into his past than anyone thought possible. But Musk wasn't just waiting for them to strike anymore. He knew the moment they made their next move, he would be ready. He had a trick up his sleeve, and it was time to play it. The morning after Musk's meeting with his legal team, he sat in his office at SpaceX, his mind whirring with calculations. He wasn't just going to outsmart Gentek. He was going to expose them for the manipulative, underhanded company they truly were. But to do that, he needed a leverage point, a way to throw them off balance. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Mia. "Mia, we've found something. It's about the investigator. You're not going to believe it." Musk raised an eyebrow and immediately called her back. "What's going on?" Mia's voice was tight, and Musk could hear the gravity in her tone. "It's the investigator. We've traced the money trail. Gentek hired him through a shell company. And that shell company is tied to, well, it's tied to someone very high up at Gentek. Someone with direct connections to Harding." Musk's pulse quickened. This wasn't just about personal attacks anymore. This was corporate espionage. Who? Mia hesitated for a moment. "It's Claudia Jensen." Musk's mind raced. Claudia Jensen, the PR genius who had been at the forefront of Gentek's image overhaul, had long been one of the company's most powerful and influential players. She was known for her ability to manipulate the media and her shrewd, calculating nature. If she was behind this, it meant that Gentek's attacks were far more methodical than he had originally thought. "Get me everything you can on her. I want to know who she's working with, and I want to know how deep this goes." By that afternoon, Musk had gathered all the information he needed on Claudia Jensen. He knew that she was ruthless, but the depth of her involvement in this case shocked even him. It seemed that she was using a series of hidden accounts, shell companies, and backdoor channels to gather sensitive information about him, much of it under the guise of investigating his business dealings and personal life. And as the pieces fell into place, Musk realized just how coordinated and dangerous this attack truly was. But Musk wasn't one to back down from a challenge. This was exactly the kind of fight he relished. He could feel the fire of determination burning within him as he pieced together his plan. It was time to expose Claudia and Gentek for what they were, to turn their own dirty tactics back on them. Meanwhile, at Gentek's headquarters, Harding sat in his office, poring over reports. He had been receiving updates about Musk's press conference, and while he had been irritated at how Musk had turned the narrative around, he was still confident that he had the upper hand. After all, what could Musk do in the face of the relentless tide of legal pressure? But his confidence began to waver when Claudia Jensen entered the room with a file in hand. She was uncharacteristically tense, her usual composure replaced by a quiet urgency. She sat down across from Harding and placed the file on his desk. "Claudia, what's going on?" Harding asked, noticing her unease. Claudia didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We've hit a snag," she said bluntly. "Musk has already figured out that we're tracking his personal life. And worse, he knows that I'm behind it." Harding froze, a dark shadow crossing his face. How could he know that? Claudia's lips pressed into a tight line. "I don't know, but he's already onto us. He's using this as leverage to attack Gentek. We need to shut this down now, before it blows up in our faces." Harding clenched his fists. This was not the way he had planned for things to go. He had underestimated Musk, and now Musk was turning the tables, making this personal. He knew that if Musk exposed Claudia, it would mean the end of her career, and it could unravel everything they had been working toward. "We need to be proactive," Harding said, his voice cold. "If Musk wants to play dirty, then let's give him a taste of his own medicine. Double down on the media spin, escalate the lawsuits. But whatever we do, we cannot let this leak to the public." "Not yet." Claudia nodded, but her eyes were troubled. She wasn't sure how much longer they could keep the lid on this without it exploding in their faces. Back at SpaceX, Musk's legal team was working overtime to prepare for their next move. They had already filed a motion to counteract Gentek's latest lawsuit, and Musk was preparing a public statement that would blow the lid off the investigation. He had one goal in mind: to expose Gentek's manipulation and Claudia Jensen's role in the smear campaign. Musk stood at the helm of SpaceX, looking out over the vast expanse of the rocket testing grounds. The cool evening air brushed against his face, but it couldn't quell the fire inside him. He wasn't just fighting for his companies, he was fighting for his family, for his legacy. He had come too far to let a corporate behemoth like Gentek destroy everything he had built. And in that moment, Musk knew exactly what he had to do. The next morning, Musk called a press conference. It wasn't just another legal update or company announcement. This was different. This was a direct challenge to Gentek, and Musk was ready to expose everything. As he stepped up to the podium, the room fell silent. Reporters, who had been waiting for another update on SpaceX's latest mission, were now on edge. Musk, standing tall and composed, addressed the crowd. "I'm here today not to talk about rockets or technology," he began, his voice calm but filled with intensity. "I'm here to talk about something far more important: the lengths to which some will go to destroy others." He paused for effect, letting the tension build. "We've learned that Gentek, under the leadership of Claudia Jensen, has been orchestrating a campaign of corporate espionage against me. They've hired a private investigator, and they've been digging into my personal life, my financial records, and even trying to manipulate the media to destroy my reputation. But this isn't about me. This is about a company that has gone too far." The room was dead quiet as Musk's words sank in. He continued, his voice steady. "They've tried to tear me down. They've tried to turn my personal life into a circus. But what they don't understand is that I'm not afraid of the truth. I will stand up for myself, for my family, and for everyone at SpaceX who has been part of this journey. And if Gentek wants a war, they'll get one." The bombshell had been dropped, and the world was watching. Musk's announcement sent shockwaves through the media. Gentek's involvement in corporate espionage was now a matter of public record, and the damage to their reputation was immediate. The tables had turned, and Musk was once again in control of the narrative. The world had barely begun to digest Musk's explosive revelations when the backlash against Gentek began to mount. Media outlets that had once been quick to cast judgment on him now scrambled to cover the breaking news. Musk had done what few corporate leaders would dare to do: he had taken control of the narrative, shining a blinding light on the dark underbelly of Gentek's manipulations. But while the public's attention shifted toward the corporate giant's underhanded tactics, Musk knew this was just the beginning. Gentek was not going to back down easily. They were a powerful adversary, and if history had taught him anything, it was that the first strike could only set the stage for the next. Musk sat in his office late into the night, the hum of his computer and the soft click of his keyboard the only sounds in the otherwise silent room. The news reports had been dominated by his accusations against Gentek for days now, and SpaceX's stock had seen a slight increase. But as much as he relished the victory, he knew it was temporary. There would be a counterattack, and when it came, it would be a hard one. The question was not if, but when. Mia Thornton entered the room, her face as focused as ever. "We've got movement. Gentek is not sitting idle," she said, pulling up a series of documents on her tablet. "They're playing dirty now. They've brought in a PR firm that specializes in crisis management, but it's not just for the public eye. They're also shoring up their legal defense, doubling down on their lawsuits." Musk leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled in thought. "They'll try to drag this through the courts," he said, his voice low. "And if they can't win there, they'll continue the public smear campaign. We need to stay ahead of them." "Any news on Claudia?" Mia's expression darkened. "She's gone underground. The last thing we know is that she's meeting with some high-profile legal contacts. This could mean she's preparing for a legal assault, something big. If they go that route, they'll do it quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if they launched another bombshell soon." Musk stared at the glowing screens before him, contemplating the next steps. He knew how this game was played. Gentek wasn't just fighting for a win in the courtroom, they were fighting for control of the narrative. If Musk wasn't careful, they could shift the momentum back in their favor, and that could cost him everything. "We need to be one step ahead," Musk finally said, breaking the silence. "Prepare for the worst, but don't wait for them to make the first move. We'll start hitting them with everything we've got. If they want to keep playing dirty, then we'll give them a taste of their own medicine." Mia nodded, fully aware of what that meant. "I'll make the calls to our legal team. We need to make sure we're ready for anything they throw our way." As the days passed, Musk's team worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable escalation. The legal department, under the direction of Veronica Hayes, fortified SpaceX's defenses, ensuring that every lawsuit filed by Gentek was met with a counterclaim that would make it impossible for them to win on any front. Meanwhile, Musk and his executives engaged in secretive meetings, strategizing their next move. But the pressure weighed on Musk more heavily than anyone could see. It wasn't just the thought of a courtroom battle, it was the toll the war was taking on his personal life. His children were growing up in the shadow of a corporate war, and while he tried to shield them from the worst of it, he knew they were aware of the chaos surrounding their family. Musk had always been driven by a vision, a desire to change the world. But as the battle with Gentek raged on, he found himself questioning whether his mission was worth the cost. Was the relentless pursuit of innovation and progress worth the personal sacrifice? Could he continue to lead SpaceX and Tesla if it meant putting his family at risk? Those questions lingered in his mind late into the night, distracting him from his work. And yet, as always, Musk knew that the answer was simple: he could never back down. He couldn't let Gentek, or anyone else, dictate the course of his future. The stakes were too high. The moment of reckoning came sooner than Musk had anticipated. A press conference was scheduled, and the world waited in anticipation. Musk stood before the media, his face a mask of determination, but underneath, there was a palpable sense of tension. The press had been eating up the drama for weeks, and Musk had been feeding them carefully curated information to keep them focused on Gentek's corporate malfeasance. He had carefully built his case, bit by bit, until the media was almost begging for the next explosive piece of the puzzle. But what they didn't know was that Musk had one final card to play, a bombshell that would obliterate Gentek's credibility and leave them reeling. He had found a connection between Claudia Jensen and a shadowy network of companies tied to illegal surveillance operations. These operations were not only illegal, they were deeply unethical, crossing lines of privacy and international law. The press room buzzed with energy as Musk approached the podium. He glanced over at his legal team, who gave him a slight nod of encouragement. He stepped up to the microphone, the world watching in anticipation. "I've come before you today," Musk began, "not just to address the latest lies and slanders, but to expose something far darker than anyone could have imagined." He paused for a moment, letting the silence in the room grow heavy. For weeks, we've been dealing with Genteca's smear campaign. They've hired private investigators, manipulated the media, and tried to turn this fight into a personal attack. But now, we've uncovered the truth. Claudia Jensen, the woman behind these attacks, has been involved in an illegal surveillance network. A network designed to not only dig into my life but also to destroy the lives of innocent people. Musk's words landed like a hammer, and the room fell into stunned silence. The reporters exchanged glances, unsure of how to process what they were hearing. Musk continued, his voice steady, unwavering. These operations were funded by shell companies, illegal funds, and linked to individuals with ties to Genteca's top executives. And while this may have begun as an attempt to discredit me, it has now revealed something far more dangerous, a corporate giant willing to cross any boundary to maintain control. As Musk spoke, his legal team presented documents to the press, showing the connections between Claudia Jensen and the illegal surveillance operation. They displayed emails, financial records, and even undercover footage that proved Genteca's involvement. This isn't just about SpaceX anymore. This is about the integrity of our legal system, the privacy of every individual, and the protection of our families from corporate greed. I won't stand by and let this happen to me or anyone else. The press erupted into chaos, reporters shouting questions, trying to piece together the new revelations. Musk stood tall, unwavering in the face of the storm he had just unleashed. Back at Genteca's headquarters, Harding watched the live broadcast in stunned disbelief. The bombshell that Musk had just dropped was a game-changer. Everything they had worked so hard for, everything they had built, was now on the verge of crumbling. The public was in an uproar, and the legal ramifications of Musk's revelations were more than they could handle. Harding turned to Claudia, who had been watching the broadcast with an expression of shock and fury. This can't be happening," Harding muttered. "We need to shut this down, now." But deep down, Harding knew it was too late. Musk had won. And Genteca had lost. Musk had never been one to shy away from the hard truths. His decision to take the battle to the public was calculated, methodical, and brilliant. The fallout from his press conference reverberated across every corner of the media landscape. As the cameras rolled, as the headlines screamed, Musk felt a weight lift from his shoulders. But it was also clear that the real war was just beginning. Genteca was reeling. The company had been built on a carefully curated public image of innovation and trustworthiness. The revelations Musk had dropped shattered that image in an instant. What's more, the fact that one of Genteca's top executives, Claudia Jensen, was linked to illegal surveillance and corporate espionage sent shockwaves through the business community. The company's stock price plummeted, and public backlash reached a boiling point. Musk leaned back in his chair at SpaceX's headquarters, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. He was watching the news coverage unfold. Reporter, this unprecedented move by Elon Musk has brought to light what many are calling the largest corporate espionage scandal in recent history. With irrefutable evidence now public, the question on everyone's mind, what will be the fallout for Genteca? Musk's phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from Mia. "Mia, I've been following the news, and it's chaos. We've got reporters asking for interviews. They're calling this a scandal of the century. But there's something more, Genteca's legal team is preparing for a counterstrike. Hard. I'm hearing they've already filed a motion to have the surveillance findings dismissed. They're hoping the court will rule in their favor." Musk's fingers drummed on the desk. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. He knew Genteca would do everything in its power to discredit the evidence, to bury the truth. He also knew they were going to attack him harder than ever before. But he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. "I'm ready for whatever they throw at us," Musk typed back. He wasn't going to let Genteca's legal threats, or their attempts to spin the truth, deter him. This was his moment, and he would see it through to the end. The next morning, Musk was preparing for a meeting with his legal team. The room was filled with tense energy, and his lawyers, including Veronica Hayes, were already deep in discussion. Musk walked in and took his seat at the head of the table, his usual composure masking the pressure that had been mounting. "All right, team. We've exposed the truth, and now it's time to finish this," Musk said, his voice low but confident. "Gentech is trying to counter everything we've thrown at them. We need to stay ahead." Veronica Hayes, SpaceX's lead attorney, nodded. "They're preparing for a legal onslaught, Elon. But we've got an advantage. We've already caught them red-handed. They won't be able to explain away the evidence. We've got clear documentation of their illegal surveillance, and we've got witnesses. That's powerful." "Exactly," Musk said. "But we also need to be proactive. Gentech will try to fight us in the courtroom, but we need to continue to push the narrative. We have to keep them in the spotlight, and we can't let them regain control. We need to make sure that every major outlet covers the truth. I want the public to understand exactly who Gentech is and what they've been doing." Musk's words were decisive, but the tension in the room was palpable. Veronica and the team worked quickly to prepare a new set of legal motions that would challenge Gentech's counterclaim. They made sure to cover every angle, blocking Gentech's every move. The battle was about to intensify. Meanwhile, at Gentech's headquarters, Harding was losing control. Claudia Jensen, once one of the most powerful people in the company, was now embroiled in one of the biggest scandals to ever hit Silicon Valley. The media frenzy surrounding her was brutal, and with Musk continuing to press forward, Harding knew that they couldn't afford to let this slide. Claudia, who had been at the center of the storm, stood in front of Harding's desk. Her face was pale, her eyes wild with frustration. "We can't let this happen, Harding," she spat. "Musk is playing us at our own game. If we don't push back, we lose everything." Harding clenched his jaw. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I know, but we're fighting a losing battle. If the court sees that we've violated privacy laws and engaged in illegal activities, it's over. They'll shut us down. Do you understand that?" Claudia slammed her fist on the desk, her anger palpable. "Then we need to find a way to discredit him. We can't let him destroy everything we've worked for." Harding looked up, eyes narrowing. "You're right. The key is to discredit Musk. If we can shift the narrative back to him, we might just have a chance. But it's risky. We're talking about digging up every skeleton in his closet." Claudia nodded. "We've already started. We've got people looking into his personal finances, his business dealings. We'll find something. I won't let Musk ruin me." Back at SpaceX, Musk was preparing for a new round of media interviews. He had been fully aware that Gentech's counterattack was coming, but he was ready. His legal team had locked in their strategy, and the public perception was still on his side. This was no longer just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the future. As he stood in front of the cameras, the spotlight once again on him, Musk felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for SpaceX anymore, he was fighting for a future where the underhanded tactics of corporate giants like Gentech wouldn't stand. "Good afternoon, everyone," Musk said, addressing the gathered reporters. "I've been asked countless times how I feel about this ongoing legal battle. The truth is, it's not about me. It's about the people who rely on SpaceX to bring the future of humanity to the stars. It's about all the engineers, scientists, and innovators who work day and night to change the world. This fight is bigger than one company, it's about doing the right thing, no matter the cost." The media storm raged on, but Musk's resolve only grew stronger. The public was behind him, and the legal momentum was on his side. Gentech had failed to bury him, and with every passing day, their grip on the narrative weakened. The courtroom battle was just around the corner, and Musk knew this was where everything would be decided. If he could win this, if he could expose the full extent of Gentech's corruption, it would be the final blow to their empire. The world would know the truth. But Musk also knew that the fight wasn't over until it was over. He couldn't afford to rest, not for a single moment. Gentech might be on the ropes, but they still had the resources to come back swinging. Musk needed to be prepared for whatever came next. And as he stared out over the SpaceX campus, his mind focused on the upcoming trial, he realized one thing: this wasn't just a fight for the future of SpaceX. This was a fight for the future of business in America. And no one, not even Gentech, could take that from him. The courthouse was a flurry of activity as Musk, flanked by his legal team, arrived for what was expected to be the most intense day of the trial. The press had gathered in droves, cameras flashing, microphones poised for every utterance. This was no longer just a corporate lawsuit, it had become a spectacle, a war for public opinion, and the fate of two titans hung in the balance. Musk didn't show it, but beneath the calm exterior, he was bracing himself for the fight of his life. He had taken on competitors, politicians, and world leaders. But this was different. Gentech wasn't just a corporation, they were a behemoth that had corrupted nearly every corner of the industry. If Musk lost this, it wouldn't just be a defeat, it would be a blow to his entire vision. The courtroom doors swung open, and Musk walked in with confidence. The room fell silent, the weight of his presence palpable. He nodded to his legal team as they took their seats, and he steeled himself for the onslaught he knew was coming. On the other side of the courtroom, Claudia Jensen and her legal team sat, their expressions tight with determination. Harding, Gentech's CEO, was in the back row, watching with a cold gaze, knowing the battle was far from over. They had made it clear that they weren't going down without a fight, no matter the cost. Judge Martin, an experienced and no-nonsense figure, took his seat on the bench, his gavel striking with authority. "Order in the court," Judge Martin called out, silencing the murmurs in the room. "We are here today to hear the case between SpaceX, represented by Elon Musk, and Gentech, represented by its legal team. Let's proceed." The tension was so thick it felt like you could cut it with a knife. Musk sat upright, focusing on the task at hand. This was the moment he had been preparing for. Claudia was the first to speak. Her voice was measured, but there was an edge to it as she addressed the court. "Your Honor, this entire case is based on unfounded accusations," she began, her eyes briefly glancing at Musk before returning to the judge. "The claims presented by Mr. Musk and his legal team are not only misleading but completely false. We have evidence to show that this case is driven by nothing more than personal vendettas and malicious intent. SpaceX is attempting to undermine Gentech's credibility in the market, using fabricated allegations to destroy our reputation. We will prove that these accusations are baseless." Claudia's words were sharp, calculated, aimed at discrediting everything Musk had uncovered. She had the charm of a seasoned lawyer, and every word was crafted to turn the tide in Gentech's favor. But Musk knew better. This wasn't going to be an easy battle, but it was one he had to win. Musk's turn came, and he rose to his feet slowly. The room held its breath. He had been in many courtrooms before, but the stakes had never been so high. He began speaking with a calm confidence that carried the weight of truth. "Your Honor, I stand before you today not to destroy anyone but to expose a truth that has been hidden for far too long. Gentech's actions go beyond simple corporate malfeasance. They've manipulated the legal system, violated the privacy of countless individuals, and engaged in illegal surveillance to protect their corporate interests," Musk began. "I didn't bring this case to ruin anyone's career or destroy a company. I brought this case because we, as a society, cannot allow companies like Gentech to operate with impunity. What's at stake here is bigger than SpaceX, bigger than me, it's about holding corporations accountable for their actions." There was a pause in the room as Musk's words settled. It was a direct challenge to Gentech's defense, and everyone in the room could feel the weight of his statement. Claudia tried to regain control of the narrative immediately. "This is just more of the same rhetoric from Mr. Musk. He's here trying to paint Gentech as a villain when the real villain is him, using his media empire to manipulate public opinion." The courtroom erupted into murmurs, but Judge Martin's gavel silenced the room again. "Mr. Musk, Ms. Jensen," the judge said, looking over the proceedings, I must remind you both that the purpose here is to present facts, not to wage a media battle. We are here to determine the validity of the accusations. Let us proceed with the evidence. The trial continued, and the battle became more intense by the minute. SpaceX's legal team, led by Veronica Hayes, presented evidence that was nothing short of damning. They laid out documents, financial records, and encrypted messages showing the direct connection between Gentek and the illegal surveillance operations. They revealed evidence of shell companies funneling money into covert programs designed to track Musk's every move and attempt to sabotage SpaceX's projects. As each piece of evidence was laid bare for the court, it became clear that Gentek had been operating with a sense of entitlement, believing that they were above the law. Their attorneys scrambled to argue against each point, but their defenses seemed weak, struggling to refute the overwhelming data SpaceX was presenting. Hours passed. The courtroom was a battleground of strategy and rhetoric. Musk's heart was pounding, but his mind was sharp. Each time the defense tried to counter, Musk's team was ready. The evidence was irrefutable. There was no way Gentek could escape the truth now. As the day drew to a close, the judge called for a recess. Everyone filed out of the courtroom, some hopeful, others uncertain. Musk knew it wasn't over yet, but he also knew that they had put Gentek on the defensive. They were now fighting for survival. That night, in the quiet of his office, Musk sat alone, reviewing the day's events. His mind raced with the possibilities of what the final verdict could mean, not just for SpaceX, but for the entire tech industry. If they won this, if they could prove Gentek's corruption, it would send a message to every company in Silicon Valley: no one was too big to be held accountable. As he sat in the dimly lit room, there was a knock at the door. Mia entered, a grim expression on her face. "We've got a problem," she said, handing him a folder. "Gentek is trying to play the public sympathy card now. They're about to release a statement that they've been the victim of Musk's smear campaign, claiming this entire case is a plot to take them down." Musk glanced at the document, and a small smile tugged at his lips. "Let them. We have the truth on our side, and the court knows it." Mia hesitated. "But it's not just about the case anymore, Elon. This fight has turned into a war for the future of corporate power. People are watching, and if we don't win this, it could change everything." Musk leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. "Then we have to win. Not just for us, but for everyone who believes that the system can work for the people and not against them." The final day of the trial arrived with the kind of electric tension that could only be felt in the heart of a courtroom. Outside, the press had gathered in droves, their cameras trained on the entrance as reporters clamored for the first glimpse of the key players. The eyes of the world were on this case, and both Musk and Gentek knew this would be a turning point, one way or another. Musk walked into the courtroom, flanked by his legal team, his gaze steady. There was no sign of nervousness, no fidgeting of his fingers. This was a man who had faced more obstacles than most could ever dream of, and he had emerged victorious each time. This trial was just one more step in the long journey of his life, and he wasn't about to back down now. The defense team from Gentek sat across from Musk, their faces set in expressions of quiet defiance. Claudia Jensen sat at the head of their table, her jaw clenched, eyes focused ahead. She had fought hard to protect her company, but deep down, she knew that the tide had shifted. The evidence Musk and his legal team presented had been overwhelming, and the public perception had turned sharply in Musk's favor. The judge, a seasoned figure with the gravitas to match the moment, took his seat. His gavel struck the wood, silencing the room, and the proceedings began. After careful consideration of all the evidence presented, and the arguments made by both parties, the court is ready to deliver its verdict, Judge Martin announced, his voice steady and resolute. Musk sat at the edge of his seat, his hands folded in front of him. He didn't allow himself to lean back. This moment would determine everything. The accusations made by Mr. Musk and his legal team have been corroborated by the evidence presented, the judge continued. Documents, communications, and testimony have shown that Genentech engaged in illegal surveillance of Mr. Musk, SpaceX, and other companies. This behavior is not only unethical but also illegal under privacy and corporate espionage laws. Musk's heart rate quickened as he absorbed the weight of the judge's words. The realization that the truth had been laid bare for all to see filled him with a sense of quiet triumph, but he knew this was only the beginning. The case wasn't just about this moment, it was about the long-lasting impact it would have on the future of corporate America. Judge Martin's gaze moved to Genentech's legal team. The court finds Genentech guilty of corporate espionage, violating privacy laws, and engaging in unethical business practices. The company's executives, including Ms. Claudia Jensen, will face legal consequences for their actions. The court hereby orders that the defendant pay damages to Mr. Musk and SpaceX, and the company will be subject to an ongoing federal investigation into its practices. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Musk felt a wave of relief flood over him, but it was tempered by the knowledge that this was far from over. Genentech was a giant, and giants did not fall quietly. Claudia's face went pale, her eyes wide with shock. Her breath hitched in her throat. For a moment, she appeared frozen, as if unable to process the reality of what had just happened. Beside her, Harding's jaw clenched. He stared at the judge, his hands balled into fists. "Your Honor," Claudia said, her voice trembling with barely contained fury, "this is an injustice. We intend to appeal this ruling. This is not the end." Judge Martin's gaze hardened. "The decision is final. The law has been broken, and the consequences are clear." Musk stood, his expression unwavering. His legal team rose beside him, exchanging looks of satisfaction, though they knew this victory was merely one part of the larger battle. Musk turned briefly to Claudia, his face unreadable, and then to Harding, who refused to make eye contact. "Justice has been served," Musk said simply. "And I'm grateful for the court's commitment to upholding the law." As the room cleared, the tension didn't fully dissipate. The media storm had just begun. Musk could feel the eyes of the world on him as he walked out of the courthouse, the flashing cameras capturing his every movement. He stepped outside, his phone buzzing with messages. His legal team had already started to strategize the next phase, the public release of Genentech's illicit activities, the full scope of their corporate corruption, and how Musk planned to use this victory to push for more corporate accountability across the tech industry. Musk's first stop was SpaceX's headquarters. He was greeted with applause as he entered the building. Employees who had been quietly following the case erupted in cheers, the weight of the victory settling over them. "We did it!" Veronica Hayes, his lead attorney, exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. Musk nodded, but his mind was already on the next steps. "This isn't just about today. It's about tomorrow. We've opened a door, and now it's up to us to walk through it and make sure something like this never happens again." Over the next few weeks, the fallout from the trial played out in the media. Genentech's stock continued to plummet, and a federal investigation was launched into the company's activities. The court's ruling reverberated through the business world, sending a message to other corporations: no one was untouchable. Musk, meanwhile, found himself more determined than ever to use his platform for good. His public statements on corporate ethics, transparency, and the need for greater accountability gained traction. Musk wasn't just a tech mogul anymore, he had become a symbol for the possibility of holding powerful entities accountable. Back at Genentech, the company's leadership was in disarray. Harding had been forced to step down, and the board was scrambling to protect what was left of the company's reputation. Claudia Jensen faced criminal charges, and it was clear her career was over. The company was hemorrhaging money, and layoffs were inevitable as they tried to salvage what they could. As for Musk, he watched all of this unfold from his office, the weight of the victory still settling in. He had won the battle, but the war was far from over. "I'm proud of what we've accomplished," Mia said as she walked into his office later that day. "But this is just the beginning. There's so much more to do." Musk looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. "I know. But now we have the power to make real change. The victory in court was just the first domino to fall in a much larger revolution, one that would reshape the way corporations operated in the tech world and beyond. Musk's influence had once again shifted the balance of power, and though the battle had been hard fought, it was clear, Elon Musk had emerged victorious. The world was watching, and for Musk, the next chapter was just beginning. The weight of the courtroom victory still hung in the air, but Elon Musk's mind was already light years ahead. The legal battle against Genentech had been just one chapter in a much bigger story. As the dust settled, Musk was already planning the next steps in his campaign, not just to secure the future of SpaceX, but to lead a revolution in how technology, business, and ethics intersect in the modern world. SpaceX was thriving, as was Tesla, and Musk had achieved what many had considered impossible. But this victory, this battle against one of the largest, most corrupt corporations in the tech industry, had shown the world that even the biggest players could be held accountable. The media coverage after the trial was relentless. Headlines proclaimed Musk's triumph over Genentech. Television networks ran round-the-clock coverage, speculating about what this victory meant for the future of business and corporate governance. Musk's Twitter feed was flooded with messages of congratulations and questions. Every time he opened his phone, the world seemed to be watching his every move. But as the media circus continued to spin its narrative, Musk remained focused. He wasn't interested in basking in the glory, he was interested in taking action. There were larger battles to fight, and he was ready to push forward. The business world was beginning to shift, but it was clear to him that his work was far from done. In the following weeks, Musk held meetings with his closest advisors, including Mia and Veronica, to lay out the groundwork for his next move. He was already speaking with lawmakers and regulatory agencies, hoping to push for stronger, more transparent policies in the tech industry. His victory over Genentech had given him the platform he needed to make real, lasting change. "We need to ensure this never happens again," Musk said in one of their strategy sessions. "Corporations have too much power, and they've abused it for far too long. We need to push for stronger regulation in the industry, especially when it comes to privacy, data collection, and corporate transparency." Veronica nodded. "The case against Genentech isn't just about them. It's a wake-up call to the entire industry. It's clear that there's a need for greater oversight." Mia added, "And this is just the beginning. There's so much more to do, from data protection laws to making sure that other companies aren't using the same tactics Genentech was. We need to build the foundations of a new era in business, where ethics and accountability matter more than profits and power." Musk's push for change didn't go unnoticed. Soon, other tech leaders began to join him in calling for greater corporate accountability. Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, and Sundar Pichai, among others, started to echo Musk's calls for reform, albeit more cautiously. The public was paying attention, and there was a noticeable shift in the discourse around corporate responsibility. But it wasn't just the big tech CEOs who were taking notice. Smaller startups, young entrepreneurs, and activists also rallied behind Musk's vision. They saw an opportunity to build a new world, a world where transparency, fairness, and innovation could thrive without the shackles of corporate greed and corruption. Musk, ever the visionary, began pushing for the establishment of an independent regulatory body to oversee the tech industry. This would be a group tasked with investigating corporate practices, protecting consumer rights, and ensuring that companies operated in a way that was both ethical and sustainable. "I know it's a huge challenge," Musk said during a press conference. "But if we want to create a world where innovation is driven by the right values, we need to take responsibility for what's happening in the industry. This is about building a better future, and I believe we can do it." As the weeks passed, Musk's influence continued to grow. His ideas began to gain traction, and the conversation around corporate responsibility shifted from abstract idealism to tangible policy proposals. He started working closely with lawmakers in Washington, offering his expertise on issues ranging from antitrust laws to data privacy. Slowly, his vision for a new kind of tech world began to take shape. But it wasn't just about policy. Musk was already planning the next big step for SpaceX, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in space exploration. His dream of making humanity a multiplanetary species was as alive as ever, and with the weight of his victory behind him, Musk was more determined than ever to make that dream a reality. Months after the trial, Musk stood before a packed crowd at a SpaceX event, the culmination of years of hard work and innovation. Behind him, the first crewed mission to Mars was being prepared for launch. The spacecraft gleamed under the bright lights, a symbol of human ambition and ingenuity. Musk's face was illuminated by the glow of the ship's reflection. "As we move forward into the stars," Musk began, his voice steady and resolute, "we carry with us the lessons we've learned here on Earth. The fight for justice, the need for accountability, and the belief that we can always do better. This is just the beginning." The crowd erupted into applause. But even as Musk stood at the precipice of this new frontier, he knew that the true revolution had only just begun. Space exploration was one thing, but the revolution in corporate governance, the future of the tech industry, these were the real frontiers. For all the progress SpaceX had made in reaching the stars, Musk's vision for Earth was just as bold. His fight for transparency, ethics, and corporate accountability was his most important battle. And the future? It was wide open, full of endless possibilities. In the end, the story of Elon Musk's legal battle was not just about winning a case, it was about something much greater, the promise of a new world, one where innovation was powered by integrity, and where the voices of the many could finally challenge the power of the few. Musk had won, but he knew that the journey had just begun. And as the rocket engines roared to life, lifting SpaceX's mission to Mars into the sky, Musk's eyes were already fixed on the stars and beyond. For the first time in history, humanity was truly on the cusp of something extraordinary. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?